2023. If you would, join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. As soon as Tara gets her remote, we'll have roll call, please.
Alderman Becker.
Here.
Alderman Schuman.
Here.
Alderman Rucker.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Morose.
Yes. Here.
Alderman Osteen.
I am here.
Mayor Harmonson.
Here. All right, first thing tonight, we do have a proclamation. It's authorizing the mayor of the National Small Business Week, April 30th through May 6th, 2023. Whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstone of our nation's promise. And small business owners and Main Street businesses have energy and a passion for what they do. And when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And because this country's 28 million small business create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and the government agencies. And whereas the city of Osage Beach, Missouri supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small business do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now, therefore, I, Michael Harmison, Mayor of Osage Beach, do hereby proclaim April 30 through May 6, 2023 as National Small Business Week in Osage Beach, Missouri, and urge citizens to join me in the special observance with appropriate events and commemorations. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Osage Beach to be affixed this 20th day of April 2023. All right. Has the board had a chance to review the minutes as well as the bills list?
Do you want to go to citizens communications?
Oh, yeah, let's do that first. I'm sorry. Citizens Communications. This is the time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the mayor and board on any topic that is not a public hearing. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and the board may be sent to the city clerk at tberreth@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting day, the first and third Thursday of each month. Submitted questions and comments may be read during the Citizens Communications section of the agenda. The Board of Aldermen will not take any action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later time. The Mayor and the Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. Is there anyone here in person who would like to address the board tonight? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Now has the board had a chance to review the bills list and the minutes? If there's no comments or questions, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Schuman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is passed. All right, we just have 2 items on the unfinished business tonight. We have Bill 23-22, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending the Osage Beach Code of Ordinances by repealing and replacing Schedule 1 speed limits, Table 1A speed limits of the Osage Beach Municipal Code, Chapter 310, speed regulations. This is the second reading. Chief Davis, please.
I have nothing further, unless you have any questions.
Anybody have any comments or questions for Chief Davis? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second?
So moved.
All right. Alderman Rose, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Osteen. Roll call, please. as soon as Tara gets back.
She went to grab your oaths of office, which we felt was pretty important.
Very good.
I can play some Jeopardy music if you'd like.
Everybody hide.
I forgot a piece of paper. My bad. All right, ready, roll call?
We just had a first and second of the unfinished business of Bill 23-22, and we're looking for a roll call vote, please.
Sweet. Alderman Becker,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker,
Yes.
Alderman Schuman,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen,
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Now on to Bill 23-25, or an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 21.78, adopting the 2022 annual budget, transfer of funds for necessary expenditures and revenue related to grants received. This is the second reading. City Administrator Gina Woods, please.
Mayor, members of the board, I have no further comments from last meeting, but I'll entertain any questions.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Brucker. Second, Alderman Becker. Roll call, please.
Alderman Morose,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Schuman,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker,
Yes.
Alderman Becker.
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Moving on, we have a motion to approve certification of the election results from the April 23rd general municipal election. City Clerk Tara Bareth, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board, in your packet is the election results from both Miller and Camden County. We just need a motion to approve those to certify those election results.
All right, do I have a motion to approve? Time out. Alderman Rucker, question?
I'd like to talk before we have a motion. First of all, it needs to be noted that our certificates are not correct. I think we can move forward, but I think it should be noted. According to the certificate of election from Miller County, the election was held on April the 7th because it says the following is an official certification of the election results in the general municipal election held in Miller County, Missouri, April 7th. Camden County says the exact same thing except basically April 4th. So there's an error that is there, but I don't think I think we can still move forward.
It wasn't our error.
No.
No, I will get with Miller County and get them to send me a corrected certification letter.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all.
Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Becker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion to approve the election results.
Excuse me, one more thing. In the motion to approve, I can't remember from last time, but do we include the total votes when we have Miller and Camden County, or do we separate them out by county?
Separate them by county. There should be two sets.
Yeah, there is. I just didn't
Yeah,
know
no.
if we total them as, because we are one city, we aren't in two counties.
Right, no, I think because they're two separate counties, it has to be separate votes
Okay, that's fine.
or
Just-
separate certifications.
All right, moving on to the oath of office. All right. Tara Bareth.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I would like to have Alderman Ross, Alderman Osteen, and Justin come on up and we'll do your oath of office.
Where are you going to do it at?
I think we'll do it right here. We'll have the mayor move. I'll do it up here. Just move your butt. Oh, I mean, excuse me. I forget we're on live.
We can have some fun.
You know, it's been a week. I'm ready to have fun.
Hang out with you.
All right.
I'm not stealing your
All right, go ahead and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Robert Osteen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri
and the city ordinances
and the city ordinances
of the City of Osage Beach,
of the City of Osage Beach,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and that I will faithfully demean myself
as Alderman Ward 1, 2, and 3, whatever ward you're in,
as Alderman Ward 1
within and for the city
within and for the city
of Osage Beach,
of Osage Beach,
which I was appointed.
which I was
Oh, elected. I'm
Elected.
sorry, elected. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Elected.
Yeah. Sign Bob,
Hey, Justin,
Justin, sign this one,
gonna need
and
that
Richard.
filled out before the end of the meeting.
And then I will put his nameplate up. You can sign, at the end's fine, I'll pick it up.
And while we still have the chairs over there, we have one more presentation and photograph. City Administrator Gina Woods, please.
Mike, you can take a picture of this one. So we recognize milestones and service awards for employees, and we extend that to our Board of Aldermen. And Alderman Kevin Rucker is getting his 15 years of service as a board member. Nope, you're in there too.
A thorn between two roses.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's get a couple more. Good to go.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin. 15 years, one time.
Nice job.
Okay. Wait, Tom, this is my chair.
No problem. All of our chairs are.
Sign chair, musical chair. I don't know the chair rules yet, so.
Well, it's not a sign, just as long as everybody has.
We would have hit an all-time high in Facebook replays.
That's true. Break some monotony here.
All right, before we move on, I am just going to say I wanted to thank Alderman Becker. It was a pleasure working with him for the 1 year, and wish him the best. Hope to see him soon. And with that, I also want to congratulate and welcome our new Alderman, Justin Hoffman. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate it.
All right, next we're going to move on for the motion to elect the President of the Board of Aldermen. Do I have a motion to appoint Alderman Morose?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate, I almost forgot his, Richard Ross to be our president of our board again this year.
Very good. And do I have any other motions? Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Alderman Osteen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, congratulations, Alderman Ross.
Thank you all.
All right, next we're going to move on to a public hearing. This is on the Beach Drive TDD, which is a Transportation Development District. Gina Woods, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. So this is a required public hearing for the TDD, part of the TDD Act and establishing the Beach Drive TDD. That's about as far as my explanation goes. But we do have two folks with us on Zoom, Rachel Orr, who represents the developer party, and then Mark Spikerman is also online. So if either one of them want to, Mark, if you want to introduce this a little better than I did, feel free.
Sure. Thank you, Gina. Once again, my name is Mark Spikerman, Special Counsel to the City with respect to economic development matters. The Transportation Development District Act, a Missouri statute, requires that a public hearing be held in connection with the establishment of a Transportation Development District, or as we call them, TDDs. The actual process for creating the TDD goes through the circuit court, but the court has ordered that the city hold this hearing. So we can, I'll hand it over to Rachel, who can describe a little bit about the TDD, but essentially you hear public comment regarding it, and if anything comes up that you wish to discuss, let us know, and we can report back to the circuit court.
Yeah, I don't have much to add besides that. Thank you, Mark. Rachel Orr, I am special counsel to the developer in this case, the Pruitts, Arapahoe, and some of the other petitioners who filed the petition to form the TDD with the circuit court. I think that Andy may be there if anyone has any questions specific to the project, but one of the main projects that's going to be undertaken is an improvement to Beach Drive to help with traffic control, congestion, and to enlarge and improve Beach Drive and some other transportation-related improvements within and outside of the boundaries of the district. And I'll kind of leave it at that unless anyone else has any other questions for me.
And I'll just add that the boundaries of the TDD are the same as the boundaries of the Beach Drive Community Improvement District, which you considered just recently.
I guess there's one other thing I will add. I know last month there was a cooperation agreement, transportation project agreement that was approved by the Board of Aldermen. The board of the Transportation Development District in this case will consist of 3 members of the city, so 3 city representatives and then 2 representatives of the developer.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody from the public? This is a hearing. You're welcome to speak. You have up to 3 minutes before we get to the Board of Aldermen. Is there anybody from the public that would like to come up and have any concerns or questions or comments? All right, seeing none, do I have any comments or questions from the Board of Aldermen? Alderman Rucker.
Yes, just one clarification. I know there was a little bit of a mix-up in the CID boundaries. There had to be some adjustment made to that on the second petition. So I just want to make sure, because what I understand, Mr. Spikerman, you said that these boundaries were both the same boundaries. So has that adjustment been made to reflect the same boundaries as what we approved in that petition that was given to us in February and not January?
Yes, that's correct. It reflects the revised boundaries.
He said yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My hearing aids don't quite do real good, sorry.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the closing the public hearing, or a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Schuman, got you by a hair. All right. Do we need a roll call for this, Gina, or to close public hearing?
No.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, no opposed. All right, public hearing is closed on this matter.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rachel.
Yes, thank you. They're gone. All right,
Thanks
next
for
we,
having us.
oh. Next we have another public hearing on this 20th day of April on marijuana proposed ordinance modifications. So, with that being said, City Attorney Cole Bradbury, would you like to take this one?
I suppose I will. Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is being brought up because, as you know, Amendment 3 last November largely legalized the possession and consumption of marijuana for recreational purposes. It does contain quite a few ins and outs. The one we're here about tonight is that the amendment specifically includes a list of ordinances or laws which are still permitted that still ban certain acts related to marijuana. This attempts to address each one of those. The little backstory, these range everywhere from possessing marijuana and what we used to call paraphernalia, what we now have to call accessories, in anywhere from a school to a correctional facility. It also applies to violations of the licensing and manufacturer rules. Most of those I don't think are very controversial, but I think the main reason for this public hearing tonight is we want to discuss the kind of more common applications of this of the ordinance as we're allowed to or allowed to but not required to prohibit or restrict conduct. What I have proposed, which is in the packet, attempts to be a starting point for a discussion. It is by no means a finished product, and we welcome the public's comment on it. Just to give you kind of the high points, we have set it up to where we have the most restrictive bans, for instance, shall not possess or consume or smoke on places like schools, playgrounds, anywhere, the most sensitive locations. And then we get less restrictive as we get down. And I know that the touchy subjects will be, of course, general areas of the general public and businesses. This proposal is based on I started from an ordinance from another town that just took everything. We are allowed to, but not required to, ban consumption of marijuana in all public places if we so choose. I didn't think that that was a very good approach. That felt very one size fits all. And so what I've proposed is kind of broken down what we consider to be public places, and allowed businesses and individuals to choose whether or not to permit it on their own private property. There's few more ins and outs on that. The last, and that I'm sure we'll discuss in this public hearing, the last detail I did want to offer is that Springfield passed theirs, I believe, 2 nights ago. And they, of course, I think they already have a smoking ordinance, but they also banned smoking consumption in all public places. Jefferson City has a similar ordinance that does something similar. At least I believe they're all phrased roughly as common areas of businesses accessible to the public. So with that, Gina and I thought that it would be wise to get public comment, and of course get the board's comments before we proceed. So this is not a first reading. This is simply a public hearing to gather input and hopefully give me some more direction towards an ordinance that the board feels it can vote for.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody from the public like to get up and speak? All right, comments or questions from the board?
I have a question.
Alderman Osteen, okay, raise his hand first, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
Need to close the public hearing and then go to our discussion? Because it's 2 separate agenda items.
I'm just close. And move on to discussion.
I mean, we're still on the public hearing.
Yeah.
And still discussion in the public.
Yeah, I think it's still a public hearing.
Correct.
And perhaps if one of the aldermen said something that one of the members of the public did want to comment on, we could leave it open for them. So.
All right, Alderman Osteen.
I just had a few questions. Obviously, there are ordinances in places for medicinal marijuana use, which had passed previously.
Yes.
Do these mirror those, or are they?
What
Are
I
we
sent.
trying to basically consume them all into one ordinance?
So
Medicinal versus-
what I sent to you, actually, I neglected to address the medical when I sent it out, and then I realized that afterwards. So in the draft that I have on my computer, that will be the final draft, there is an exception for, of course, basically that none of this applies to anything permitted by the medical marijuana ordinances is still legal and not affected by our ordinances. Generally speaking, the medical marijuana ordinances were even more restrictive of where you could and couldn't smoke, and the idea of the medical amendment was to legalize buying it at a dispensary, taking it home and smoking it. And that's all it really legalized in terms of consumption. It did not legalize its use in public places. It did not decriminalize it except for medical use.
Do we need to clarify in these ordinances distinctions between medicinal marijuana usage versus somebody with a wholesaler or grower's license versus, because obviously there's different caveats that go with those different types of licensing or usage?
I tried to, I don't believe so, but I will make sure to give that a second look for you before we propose it. Without the medical amendment in front of me, it would take quite a bit of reading and take up a lot of the time here tonight. I'd be happy to go through that and make sure that this is consistent. I believe it is, though, because again, the medical amendment only permits the the purchase and at home, in-home consumption of it. It did not legalize consuming it in a school or possessing it in a school. So this is really addressing the recreational use, or for that matter, if you have a medical card, you can now medically use it anywhere it's permitted.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. My other question is under section E, number 5. To keep in or on the grounds of a private residence in excess of 3 ounces of marijuana produced by a privately cultivated plant in an unlocked space. I'm confused on.
To be really honest, I pulled that one directly out of the amendment. That is a copy and paste from the amendment. So that is one of the laws of the amendment, that is language directly from Amendment 3.
So if you've got a personal use quantity of 3 ounces, it must be in a locked or.
I believe that is it's
Locked
not
in a private
intended.
residence?
I will have to go back and look at that one for you. I'm sorry, Alderman, off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question sitting here, but I believe that language was directly pulled from Amendment 3, so it was phrased that way for a reason. I will go find that reason.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is, number one, obviously it looks like it would be something very hard to enforce, but if I lock my doors, I'm in a locked space. So therefore, if I had marijuana in my home, it would be in a locked space, correct?
I would say,
So anyway, I'm just trying to dial down on some of these ordinances
Right.
because a lot of people are going to interpret them differently. And the first thing I thought was a locked space. Well, my house is on lockdown when I go to bed.
so, yeah, so broadly speaking, section E of this is, are kind of the regulatory, what I would call the regulatory ones having to do with the growing and cultivation and all of that. I did not spend a whole lot of time on those because it's more, I've never practiced marijuana law before other than getting people out of a few tickets here and there. So I didn't give it a whole lot of thought, and this was what the other model ordinances that we were using were all saying as well.
I understand. Of course, this is the first
But
pass.
I'll be happy to give you,
But
I'll be
right
happy
off
to
the
give
bat,
you
I
some.
thought, well, this is open to a lot of interpretation when we're talking about having it for personal use in a locked space.
I believe there is some kind of requirement to that effect, but I will go look it up for you and let you know.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Alderman Osteen, I think that some of that refers to you can't grow your plants outside on your deck where everybody can see it and walk up and take it if they needed it or wanted it.
Yeah, the idea, yeah, I do know that there is, yeah, now that you say that, that's correct. There is a provision in there that prevents you from growing it in your front yard.
Yeah, but basically this reads though, possession,
Right.
just having it on your premise needs to be in a locked. I understand what you're saying. That may have been the intent, but once again, reading through the ordinance as it stands is open to a lot of interpretation.
And I think we can clarify it a little bit. The risk in clarifying too much is we stray too far from what Amendment 3 says we can and can't do. And so obviously the safest thing to do is to literally take the ordinances that they say we are allowed to use and copy and paste them so that we avoid being inconsistent with Amendment 3. But I believe that is what is aimed at, and I'll take a harder look at that section for you.
Okay.
Alderman Hoffman, did you have something?
Yes, do our ordinances apply to and govern over PB2?
PB2 is not in city limits.
So they're on their own, that's a state?
State.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Alderman Rucker.
We have a specific ordinance that deals with ATVs and golf carts. Okay, so my question is, the language that you have in C, will that cover our people in ATVs and golf carts, or do we need to go back to the ATV golf cart one and address something there? Because it's not a licensed vehicle, and it's not a anyway, so there's my question.
Without looking at that ordinance, I couldn't tell you the answer. Typically, a motor vehicle, for the purposes of DLR and traffic, typically if you're operating a motorized vehicle on a public street, you're in a motor vehicle, which is how you can get a DWI on a bicycle. But
Motorized bicycle.
or motorized bicycle, sorry. DWI, lawnmower, scooter, so on.
Correct.
So I suppose really the question is, are you seeking to ban it on an ATV on private property or an ATV on a public right of way? But
Our ordinance deals with ATVs and golf carts on public.
that would be a vehicle.
I would like to see this be able to cover, the marijuana usage be able to cover those drivers as well.
I don't see a
That's what
good
I'd
reason.
like, but I don't know if it does or doesn't.
If we're going to ban it for drivers, I think we should ban it we should not have a golf cart loophole. I agree. So that's another one to take a look at.
Just say any motor vehicle.
Any other comments, questions from the board?
Are we still having a discussion after this, right?
Yes.
Okay, no, not at this time.
All right. Before we make a motion to close the public hearing, anybody from the public would like to speak? One last chance. All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close
Alderman
public hearing.
Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Public hearing is now closed. Now we'll move on to discussion. And Cole's already spoke his piece.
Somehow I suspect I am not done speaking.
Yes. All right. Comments from the board on the marijuana ordinance. Alderman Ross, did you have something?
I have a couple of things that Cole and I have had some, we'll just call them spirited discussions around consistency. And so one of the things that, we kind of talked about as a header to this is that we were going to try to handle this similarly how we handle alcohol and cigarettes. And when we talk about the parks, for example, okay, we sell alcohol there, okay? And while I realize that we probably don't want somebody sitting in the stand smoking a joint, I get that, okay? I wonder why, if somebody's down at the end of the lake, meaning the fishing lake, or out on the other end of it, then, and I'm not even sure that they can consume alcohol there, okay?
They cannot.
And they cannot, was what I think I'm finding. So we sell it in a park, but yet they can't consume it but in limited places. Is that right?
Our liquor license is covered a certain perimeter.
Which is essentially the softball
Okay.
fields.
So-
And the concession stand.
Other than our ordinances, just to make sure, the ability for someone to sit down and with this fishing pole and drink a beer down at the lake, either the Lake of the Ozarks or our city lake, is because of local ordinances, not because of any state statute. Is that correct?
Correct. We do not have a state open container right.
Okay.
ordinance, or
And I don't think that, and so at the end of the day, I just want to, what I find in general is there's some inconsistencies here, but some other people may have different perceptions, okay? I don't see a real problem with somebody walking down the street on a sidewalk with a beer in their hand. Other people may, okay? And so at the end of the day, I just find that we're somewhat inconsistent here. And I don't think that alcohol, I think that alcohol and marijuana consumption should be very similar. They're both legal, okay? And they're, so one of the things here is I'm trying to get to it, it was D3. So under D3, it says that you cannot possess, consume, smoke, or burn marijuana or possession on the grounds of any, oh, that's, okay, I'm on the wrong one. Airports, parks, buildings, so forth. I don't care about, airports fine, the city hall, all that stuff. But when you're out in the nature, okay, for lack of a better term, I just wonder, but what we shouldn't consider that this should be a little more loose. And given the fact, how would I say, given the fact that someone, in my mind at least, should be able to drink a beer out at the city park. Now, I'm not saying Phoenix Park, for example, but our city park is much different because it's so spread out and there's some other things. I don't see a big deal about it, but it's not a big throwdown thing for me, but it's just something to bring up and discuss. Same way with sidewalks. If somebody right now, maybe we just don't enforce it much, but apparently if they walk from wobbly boots with the beer in their hand over to the hotel, they're in violation. And I'm not convinced that that should really be an issue, to be quite honest, if they're walking around with a beer in their hand. And then along the other line is the businesses. I'm not really sure why we're even attacking this from a business standpoint, okay? If someone wants to come into a business right now and a business owner doesn't want them to smoke a cigarette, then they can tell them to leave. And if they don't leave, our police will respond if they choose to call, and they'll take care of it that way through, from what I gather, a trespassing. But in this particular case, they have to, if they want to allow it, they have to post a sign. And I'm not convinced why we even need to get into that arena, okay? We can handle this by just the same way we handle smoking cigarettes, in my mind. So just a couple points for consideration. Some other people may think that's important to discuss or not, but those are just some thoughts I have.
Alderman Rucker.
My comment would be that the ability for our local government to put more controls on marijuana was approved and voted on by the public and was passed by the state, and that authority was given to us. That authority was not given to us to have that ability to go, I believe, quite that far on the alcohol. We have some ability on the alcohol, but not as much. Why we don't? It could be the time, or in my opinion, it's because I can walk behind somebody that's got a beer and I'm okay. But if I walk behind somebody that's smoking marijuana, then I'm getting a secondhand smoke. That's my justification in my own little brain. That's why I go back to that we were given the authorization to put some other limitations, I guess you could say, or on it, and that's what was passed in the law, that statute. And we are just taking an opportunity to exercise not all of them, but some of them, and I support what's here. That's my opinion and thought.
Alderman Schuman.
Mine is actually very similar to what Kevin was saying, is if you're walking down the sidewalk drinking a beer, that smell is not really going to affect me. If I'm walking behind you, drinking the beer is not going to change any of my perspective, but if anybody is smoking anything, whether I'm smelling it or inhaling it or anything like that. You know, it's kind of a little bit different situation there in my mind, because what you're doing could potentially affect me, same with cigarette smoke. But I do see your point too, that it does similar things. But that's where I would go if I was walking on the sidewalk with my kids. I wouldn't necessarily want somebody blowing smoke at them or near them, because sometimes people aren't always careful about where they exhale their smoke.
Alderman Hoffman.
I'm not sure about the statute on this, but right now it's legal to walk down the sidewalk smoking a cigarette, correct?
In Osage Beach, yes.
Okay,
Now, in
so-
some other cities, no.
So if you don't want to be around the smoke, you just move or you walk further behind them. I don't see much of a difference between them smoking a joint or smoking a cigarette. If we're going to ban weed smoking, why are we not banning cigarettes too? I kind of look at them as the same thing personally.
I actually had a statement
Alderman
similar
Osteen?
to what he was going to say was, we are walking a fine line when we talk about smoking, be it cigarettes, be it marijuana, be it vaping. And once again, I think we should treat this more along our ordinances and regulations for tobacco usage. Because a lot of the areas that we are singling out here where it cannot be consumed does not mirror other ordinances or regulations on tobacco use. So I think we walk a really fine line for people saying, I can walk down the street smoking a cigarette, but I can't walk down the street vaping. You know, the perception of, yes, I understand secondhand smoke, et cetera, but it's just as dangerous for cigarettes as it is for marijuana. So I don't know, I just think we're walking a fine line that we really need to think about, especially in our verbiage on this. That's all.
Alderman Schuman.
Okay, and I'm not very well versed in this, I don't know, but can you get like secondhand high off of? So that is my other thing, is that a cigarette smoke is not gonna alter somebody's state of mind who's walking next to the person, whereas smoking marijuana would. So that's kind of like a little bit there. I know I've been in other cities where it has been legal, and walking down the street, you can smell it so strongly. We were in Kansas City, for example, a couple weeks ago. We were driving our car with the windows up, and we got to an intersection, and you could just smell it very strongly because everybody on the sidewalk was. So one or two people is one thing, but if it gets busier, that is another thing to consider. It's a lot. I'm not saying that we're gonna have huge groups of people. It's not as congested here as it is up there in the middle of downtown, but it is something to kind of consider. What they're doing could alter an effect. Now, I don't know the amounts. I don't know that much about it, but just something to consider.
And I did do a little research on that.
Okay.
At one of your colleagues' requests, there is such thing as a contact high.
Okay.
It is, to be perfectly fair, the science on it seems to be that outdoor, it is fairly low risk, but it will end up in your bloodstream, but that does not necessarily mean that you will produce an impairment. But we all know that marijuana stays in your system quite a bit. There's quite a bit in Amendment 3 about what you can and can't use blood tests for because it stays with you so long.
Okay.
But it does show up in measurable amounts. Secondhand marijuana smoke does show up in measurable amounts, even outdoors, in the bloodstream after being exposed. In an indoor confined space, there are studies that show that you can actually get a light high on it from obviously the more contained and the less ventilated, the worse. But so that's the science. Do with it what you will.
Alderman Ross.
Well, I'm just going to say this, that I think that one of the things that this says here, I want to make sure I get this right, but it says consume, smoke, or burn marijuana, okay? So there's many ways to consume it.
Correct.
Right? The edibles, if you will,
Correct.
the vaping that was brought up, okay? So maybe as we progress, we think about how maybe what I sense here is the smoking of it, okay? Maybe there's a differentiation between the smoking of it versus an edible, okay? Which isn't going to put off anything, for example. A vape puts out, I don't know, but I'm assuming much like cigarettes, a whole lot different thing. I've been around people that vape cigarettes, and I can't, other than the cloud that's pouring out of them, I don't smell anything or notice anything, all right? Now, I don't know if that's the case for marijuana, but I'm just going to, because of that association. So that is one thing. And then I would also just say that, and we can bring this to, if we want to segregate it, but we still have So that's the public places, but we still have something we need to talk about here from a business standpoint too.
Can I address the first one?
Sure.
And I think that's a valid point. So if you look at D, you'll notice that from 1 to 7, well, from 1 to 6, 7's different. But if you look at from 1 to 6, they get progressively less restrictive. So 1 is, schools, daycares, things like that. You can't even, we're saying you can't even possess it. We don't want it on school grounds. And I think that's a pretty solid policy, especially because you can't possess it if you're under 21. And then it gets down to consume, smoke, or burn in certain situations, and then just smoke or burn, which is what you just said. This was my first stab at covering that, as far as kind of trying to address where in the spectrum these locations fell, but it is a stab, it was a guess. I think the concerns about consuming an edible and I will have to go look where vaping falls, whether vaping is considered smoking or not. I know the amendment has the answer. I do not know what it is. If we're, I think the concerns about somebody consuming an edible, how we even catch that is beyond me, to be really honest. Somebody consuming an edible, to your example earlier about consuming an edible while fishing on the lakefront, is virtually practically inoffensive compared, is really no different than the example of drinking a beer. Whereas smoking brings with it, the odor and the potential in the right circumstances to get in somebody else's bloodstream and whatnot. So I think that's a valid point, and that's certainly something worth looking at and tweaking if the board wants to tweak it.
If I may, Mayor?
Yes.
I agree with Alderman Schuman. I'm not a big fan of having clouds of smoke around me either. I really like what Alderman Ross said. If we could find a way to differentiate and not have, 12 people walking down ripping bong hits and big clouds of smoke in public, I think that's a positive for everyone except for those 12 people. So maybe we need to look at just groups of people creating large vats of smoke, if that's possible. I don't know. But for the rest of it, just a guy walking down the street smoking a joint, I just don't see how that's legally any different than smoking a cigarette.
All right, I'm going to say a couple things. Nobody else is raising their hand right now because I've had some conversations with Cole and Alderman Ross, and I've read it and had time to think on it. Most of it I support. I changed my opinion on one thing specifically from the time Cole and I talked and Alderman Ross and I talked, and then I thought about it. But first of all, I do differentiate between cigarettes and marijuana. One can get you, it's an intoxicant, just like alcohol. So I do see that as a different. But it is legal now, and the city parks, written in there, I don't remember the exact wording, you cannot smoke, consume, or have on your person. However that's written, that part I don't agree with because since it is legal, if somebody has a marijuana cigarette in their pocket and they're not doing anything with it, but they plan to smoke it later, who knows it's there? And so if somebody stops them and...
You can possess.
Okay,
this,
possess.
You can possess,
Okay,
you just
possess.
can't consume. And I think that goes to whether or not you should be able to consume or smoke.
Okay.
And those are,
Perfect.
let's just say edibles and joints.
Yeah, right. And then the other thing, it should be treated just like alcohol, in my opinion. I mean, where you cannot consume alcohol, you should not be able to consume marijuana, in my opinion. The marijuana law that was passed, it has its own regulations. You still can't have it in a car legally. You still can't have it on a boat legally. But as far as if you can't drink alcohol in a space, you shouldn't be able to have a marijuana cigarette, in my opinion. But where I did change my mind on something, and again, this is the Alderman's decision. I put in my input until it comes down to 3-3. But at first, I agreed that a business should be banned, but if the business wanted it to be there, they should have to put up a sign that we allow it. And then the more I thought about it, I don't think that's right. I think it should be treated the same as cigarette smoking. If a business wants to ban cigarette smoking or marijuana smoking, they should have the ability to do that, but I don't think it's up to the business to have to put up the sign and say, oh, you can smoke here. Right. And quite frankly, I even thought about my Harmy's cheese store. Latitude's right next door. We do a bags tournament every Wednesday night. So I'm thinking, all right, people are out back playing bags, they're having a cocktail, they're having a great time, and should I, as a business, have to put up a sign saying, yes, you can smoke marijuana here? I think it should be, if I don't want them to smoke it there, I should have put a sign, you cannot smoke here. But that's the one thing I would change. Alderman Schuman.
Do we have a smoking ban in Osage Beach, though?
We do not.
don't?
No,
Okay, so
no.
just, the businesses just kind of all decided that it's
Right,
non-smoking,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
About 8 years ago or so, it just.
Yeah, I just
it
wasn't
happened in
sure,
like a
because I
year.
was like, well, if we have one for
Yeah.
this, but we not for this, but okay, if we don't
that-
have one,
that's
that's
why I
saying
think
something else. I
yeah.
didn't realize we didn't have a,
And that's why I should, as a business, use, if you don't want it, tell them you can't. But I don't think it's up to us to ban it. That's my opinion.
This is one of the topics on which Alderman Ross and I had a spirited conversation. And so first and foremost, I think to enforce this, especially if you're going to say we can ticket people for smoking in a place they're not allowed, there needs to be notice. So that people know they are or are not allowed to smoke in a particular location, in a business. And so to me, it really came down to really two things. One, we're probably going to so either we have a ordinance that says that that the default is no smoking unless they post that you can smoke marijuana, or an ordinance that says that you can smoke it unless they post that you can't. So one side or the other is going to have to do a lot of posting. And for me, the reason I wrote it that way, but regardless, I do feel strongly that if we're going to enforce it, one group or the other has to post. Because otherwise, people will say, well, it didn't say I could or couldn't, and then we have Todd's guys have a tough time enforcing it. And it's not really fair to put, to not put people on notice.
We just need some clarity on it, and going back to number 5, or D5, like Cole and I talked this afternoon, if, say, somebody's smoking a joint in Walmart, and they call us, if without anything, we can't tell them, to put it out or anything, hey, they don't want you smoking it. And if they pursue the trespassing charge, like Alderman Ross mentioned, that's a criminal arrest, where if we cite them for just smoking where they're not supposed to be, that's a, what's it called, civil penalty.
Civil penalty of not to exceed $100.
Right.
But
So it's not an
trespassing is
arrestable
590 days.
So that's one other.
Alderman Schuman?
so one more kind of caveat to this. So thinking about, we have a lot of families coming here as well. Honestly, if I'm taking my kids somewhere, I would like to know if they are going to allow people in there to smoke marijuana or not, because I might change my mind about where I'm going because of that, because it might not bother me, but I don't want my kids around it, and I don't want that to show up in their bloodstream or anything. And so it would be kind of nice for the public as well to know, if I don't want to be around it, I know these businesses allow it. Maybe those aren't the ones I go to, or, hey, I know that they're going to let me, so that's where I'm going to go in. And it also would help the public be a little bit less confused about where they can or can't.
So to that point, that's exactly why I wrote it this way. And really, that's kind of I split it into two concepts. So this is what Alderman Ross and I discussed. Number one, I think we're going to have a lot more locations in city limits that prohibit it rather than allow it. Walmart, Target, all of our big, they're not going to allow it. So as a practical matter, we're talking about having to, making our businesses order 30 signs instead of 3,000 to post that you're gonna have to order 3,000 no marijuana signs versus 30 yes marijuana signs. So that was a simple calculus. The other part of it is exactly that. See, when places started banning smoking, you used to be able to smoke a cigarette anywhere. And gradually businesses started banning cigarettes. And so you started seeing the no cigarette, the red slash. You get on an airplane today, everybody in this room knows damn well that you cannot smoke a cigarette on an airplane, but there is still a no smoking light that is always on the airplane, because we came from a place where it was always allowed, and the default is you can do it unless there's a no smoking sign. Now we have no smoking signs everywhere, but marijuana, we're coming from the other side of the spectrum. We're coming from the side where it used to be that you would never encounter somebody smoking a joint at Walmart, Wobbly Boots, wherever, City Hall. But so the public's expectation is that you're not going to run into marijuana smoke. And so I think the more useful expectation setting is to have signs that say, to a family like yours, I was thinking about my kids too, same thing. I want to know if I'm walking in, hey, I might encounter marijuana, and maybe this is where I want to go, or maybe it isn't. But I think it's still going to be more expectation altering to run into a sign that says marijuana smoking, and we're just talking about smoking for this, is permitted on premises than to see a sign that says marijuana smoking is not.
I got a question for you. You talk about Walmart and Target. Are you talking about inside?
Indoors.
I've never, you can't smoke a cigarette indoors, so you can't
Right.
smoke marijuana in there. People know that.
And yes,
So, I mean.
but should they have to post that?
To my knowledge, they don't know.
Huh?
I don't think so.
I mean, nobody here.
I don't either, but I think if we're going to ticket people for smoking, if we're going to ticket people for smoking marijuana, because it's not the no cigarette, we're talking about marijuana. I would not want to, as prosecutor, I would not want to hang my hat on there's actually a separate part about smoking. But I think I would rather, from an enforcement point of view, from a clarity point of view, from an expectation point of view, have it is permitted versus it is. And if you want to go the other way on that, that's fine. But I do think regardless of what we do, we should require it to be posted that it is or is not permitted, so that there's clarity for everybody involved, so that, if the officers show up and say, well, there is or there isn't a sign, and that automatically gives them the answer, and that gives the public the answer too, so that they know what they can and can't do.
I only know personally of one business where you can smoke inside. I'm talking about cigarettes, right? So point being is, I don't think Walmart, Target, or wherever, nobody allows smoking inside except for one establishment, and I personally choose not to go there because I don't want to walk out with a bunch of smoke on me.
Woody's and Chevy's.
Alderman Hoffman?
We have two.
Okay,
We have two.
But everybody else knows you can't smoke cigarettes in there, so they certainly know you can't smoke marijuana in there.
I know several of the people that own the restaurants and bars down here. I frequent their places. I'm friends with all of them. No matter what we do, they're going to put signs up regardless. If they don't want it there and they know they're going to put signs up. So I think those people are already going to do it. I just think it simplifies the process to say, hey, business owner, you make the choice. And because I think that's going to happen anyway.
Regardless, we're telling the business owners they have the choice. I mean, I don't think that doesn't, it's just who has the burden of buying the signs. Should you have to post that it's not allowed, or should you have to post that it is?
Well, and I personally don't want to put up a sign that says marijuana smoking is allowed. And I mean, people know they can't smoke inside. But anyway, Alderman Schuman, you have time?
I was just gonna say, I know that we are trying to somewhat compare it to alcohol consumption, but yet again, it is slightly different because of the smoke portion of it, because that can affect others, however. That's the only thing that I was thinking, is that I don't really care what anybody else says. I don't care if I go to a place and eat and the person next to me has had 5 beers. That is not going to affect me and my kids. But if they're smoking right next to me, it would just be nice to have a way to identify. And if we don't require it, then, like you said, hopefully businesses are posting it themselves, but.
Alderman Rucker, do you have something?
If someone is smoking cigarettes, pipes, cigars, we say cigarettes, but when we talk about it, we're also talking about pipes and cigars. And when I smoked, loved pipes and cigars, so I was one of them. It is obviously almost obnoxious as the marijuana can be. So, but my question is if I'm walking into Walmart and smoking a cigar, okay, what can be done to me? The people in Walmart can tell me to stop, and if I'm gonna be belligerent about it, can the police come up and arrest me? Can they put me in jail? Can they write me a citation?
So what happened, the process, and Chief Davis, correct me, fill in any details on this, but the process is, if you're smoking a cigar, they cannot physically remove you. They don't have, because, then now we have an assault case. So they call the police while you're smoking your cigar. You smoke your cigar while we wait for the police to arrive. Police arrive, then they they make contact with Walmart. Walmart says, hey, we've asked this guy to leave. He won't leave. He's smoking a cigar. Todd asks you to leave. If you leave, you get no ticket at that point.
Correct.
So you can finish your cigar, and then if he says, hey, leave, you go, okay, I finished my cigar or my joint or whatever, you're out, and there is no ticket, so you got away with it. Or if you do not leave at that point, then he can arrest you for trespassing. But and where I don't like that, and I don't think we're debating whether or not to make it a ticketable offense, we're just debating who should have to post the sign. What I don't like about that is what we didn't like about that was you smoking, and in the marijuana context, you're smoking a joint. But instead, we're coming up with another charge to hit you with, like trespassing or peace disturbance or something like that. We're trying to be creative when we could just have an ordinance that says, don't do that. And we all agree you shouldn't be doing that. So that's kind of, and in the case of the marijuana, Amendment 3 has a specific little box that they get put in with the $100 civil penalty and no criminal conviction, to where they're actually better off in that little box than they are getting a trespassing charge or a peace disturbance. But that trespassing process is, I own a business too, and it's obnoxious to watch it play out because you're like, I just told them to leave. And I'm like, well, I gotta ask them too before I can do anything about it. And that is the law, you have to do it, but it's a very, you're like, I've told the guy 6 times, can you haul him out? Nope, hang on, I gotta ask him some questions. And it's a frustrating process.
Interesting you said hit. Hit them with. Yes. Any other comments or questions from the board? Alderman Osteen.
A lot of times when I look at these ordinances, I always look at 2 things: enforceability and interpretation.
Yep.
And I'm a little confused if we go down to D7, which states it shall be unlawful to undertake any task while under the influence of marijuana, which if doing so would constitute negligence, recklessness, et cetera, et cetera. That to me is an open door for us to have an approved intent, that you willingly consumed marijuana, then acted in reckless behavior. How do it's...
That's another one plucked word for word out of Amendment 3. And
it's already a law.
Well, no, it's one that we are allowed to pass. We do not have to pass. And that's one that if we had anything in particular that we wanted to target with that, I would probably prefer to break those out in more detail. But I do think it's a nice catch-all, because what it essentially allows us to punish would be somebody gets extremely high, for instance, and starts swinging a sledgehammer around in Walmart. So we're picking on Walmart today, sorry. But, injures or endangers somebody else by doing that, that would be reckless or negligent activity while high, that we would punish under this ordinance. Now, is it a little broad? Is it a model of clarity? No, it is not.
It's very open-ended. That's why I said it can be interpreted in many different ways.
And if we had particular scenarios that we were concerned about, I would much rather detail them out. But at the same time, it is nice to have from an enforceability point of view, this person who has to make it stick. It's a double-edged sword as well. I can use that, but am I going to lose? But am I going to lose if I try to make it stick on something really iffy? But I do think, as your city prosecutor, it's a nice tool to have for those unexpected circumstances. The other part that ordinance or that exception in Amendment 3 covers is if we have some other ordinance that we could punish them under, basically their use of marijuana does not exempt them from that ordinance. If that makes sense. Amendment 3 doesn't invalidate some other ordinance because they have a right to smoke weed.
Yeah, well, I think this one needs to be addressed further. I think it's just very open-ended, and there's too much interpretation for...
I'd love some ideas, because
Well, yeah, I mean, if someone's wakeboarding, does that fall into it? Sorry.
Alderman Ross?
So I was just going to say that number 7, that's only for public places, Bob, right? And public safety. D7.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not.
Well, it's not.
I'm assuming public places mean things that are owned by the public. So it's City Hall, parks.
Open to the public.
Open to anywhere outside is how I'm
because that's what businesses are under public places too.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about liquor licensing in a couple of weeks.
So I didn't catch on to that one.
We're going to be talking about liquor licensing in a couple of weeks, and public places include a licensed an establishment that's licensed to sell alcohol.
Okay.
So.
And so first of all, from a suggestion standpoint, D3, I would just take the word consume out and just move on. Okay, that would be a suggestion to me. yeah.
That's kind of what I was hearing from the board.
Right,
So,
okay. The other thing is that there's somehow we got into this conversation that we're assuming that we want to make this a ticketable offense, okay? And, well, I understand there's a bit of a distinction between that and smoking cigarettes, especially when it comes to businesses and so forth. We've done very well here for a long period of time by not making smoking cigarettes in a business a ticketable offense, okay? And I'm not convinced that I want to make this a ticketable offense when it comes to businesses. You want to ticket somebody because he's sitting at the park in the concession stand smoking a joint, that's fine, okay? Not a problem, all right?
it's our property.
Right, it's our property, all right? But when it comes to a business, I'm not convinced that that's where we want to go. And I think the more that we start heading into businesses and what can and can't be done inside businesses, I think that's more up to the business owner, and we should leave it at that. And that's just my 2 cents.
Alderman Hoffman.
I was just back to what Alderman Odenstein was talking about on number 7. I mean, is eating a gummy and going wakeboarding wrong under that clause? I mean, what? I see where he's going with the open-ended. I mean, you're going water skiing, you're going wakeboarding. I mean, you're going to deal with that all the time.
Yeah, I'll be honest, that was not one that was the focus of this project. That's one that I plucked straight out of Amendment 3. Like I said, I do think it's in law, it's what we call a catch-all provision. It's or any other, lots of laws have, a list and list or any other similar blah, blah, blah. And this is kind of that. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, with his example, wakeboarding, though, the lake, our ordinances don't go to the lake, do they? Because that's
We have a small
state-ish.
stretch of,
It's just like out so far and then it becomes not ours, right?
yeah, the wakeboarding example really wouldn't apply because other than a very small stretch of the Grand Glades, we don't have lake in our, city limits. But to your point, skateboarding or something like that, it's still, I
grabbed the first one.
it's well taken. Yeah, I understand the point you're trying to make. And really that's the question is, so is it, how do we use that? How do we enforce it? I mean, the real question would be, so if somebody goes skateboarding high and they hurt themselves, is that illegal? Maybe, we can agree or disagree on whether that should be. But if they're skateboarding high and they run over one of Kelly's kids, then that, that would be, recklessness, and especially when it's, especially the would endanger others part. I mean,
But then how can you gauge that they were high, and that's what caused them to act in that reckless behavior?
Right.
Unfortunately, with marijuana consumption, now equating this to alcohol, there's a level. There's a level that's statewide that says you basically, if this occurred and your blood alcohol content was above this level, you were engaging in reckless behavior. There is no such statute on how high you can be to be considered that you are.
There is no
That
test.
you're engaging in reckless behavior. That's why I said it is such an open-ended that it's hard to gauge, that they did this that was negligent or reckless because they were high, as opposed to they were just stupid. It's just.
Well, this is a discussion item. Where do we want to go from here, Cole? Do you have enough information to?
I certainly have quite a bit of information to make some, clearly some edits. I have chiefs waving at me.
I was just gonna say on D7, where I kind of looked at that was, say you have, there's a construction project, they're redoing Kings Plaza from the wind blowing the roof off like they did. You have a contractor that goes out and Randy's is open, but they're still doing some construction there. He goes out at lunch, smokes 3 or 4 joints, comes back, he's working high, does something and injures somebody that's there going to one of the businesses. That would possibly fall under D7.
But how could you say that action was because they were high? And that's what I'm saying. There is no definition that says, like I said, like blood alcohol content. You can't say that we would have to prove that behavior was not just accidental.
You would have
through
to
the
prove
course
that
of
he's
work.
impaired, just like we would on
All right, wait a minute.
driving.
Let's have one at a time, please.
Sorry.
All right.
So there's actually an answer. So and something I do want to point out, because it's throughout this and it's throughout Amendment 3. It's actually, you don't actually have to prove they're impaired. You have to prove they're under the influence. And that is a difference. So with DWI, for instance, 0.08, you can be under the influence and be a 0.04. That's under the influence. You're 0.04. There is an influence of alcohol, but you are not impaired. You are impaired at 0.08. We don't have a test for marijuana. There is none. Todd and I both believe that we'll probably have one in a few years because this is going to become too common. But for now, we do not have a test. But all of these apply to people who are under the influence. So the classic example we were talking about, like with a vehicle, is if somebody took a gummy and drove down the road and they won't admit that they're high on marijuana, it's going to be very difficult for us to prove it. Now, it's still illegal, but we're going, me and whichever officer's testifying, we do have DREs, drug recognition experts, who are trained to do basically field sobriety tests for drugs. It's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough. Honestly, the best evidence is usually they'll admit it. I've represented a few stoners in my lifetime, and they'll usually more than happily just tell you that they've done it.
Yeah.
The other example in a vehicle is, if they pull somebody over at 10 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock in the morning, window rolls down and a cloud of smoke comes rolling out, and we all know what it smells like. Congratulations, we have that they're under the influence and also that they're consuming in a vehicle. The example that Chief just gave about, a contractor goes out and has something, especially if it's an edible and there's no smell, if he won't admit it, if he won't talk about it, and we can't get some kind of blood test or something else that will, or a DRE or something else that will help us prove it, that's gonna be tough. So we're not gonna have the easiest time making that one stick, but it seems like more often than not, if you just ask them, they'll tell you.
But once again, enforceability is what I'm looking at and how.
It is going, I'd rather have the option to enforce it if they'll tell us than say, I'd love to nail him on this, but I can't prove it because he was smart enough to not admit it. But that's really a burden of proof issue for court. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be, it should still be illegal. It's just whether we can prove it's another story.
Chief, did you have anything else on that? Okay, Alderman Hoffman.
So does this give the police something it helps them arrest someone, and even if they don't, it's just a burden of proof. You might have to drop the charge later, but it gives them something to charge them with?
We're not that kind of town. One of your old Max Creek towns, somebody who just wants to charge people with stuff, Ferguson. Could that be abused? Yeah, it could.
I was not thinking abuse. I was thinking it's just a tool for them. If someone is acting inappropriately, if you happen to have to drop it later, that's fine, but it keeps the public safe.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And really the one that this conversation came up because we were starting to talk about the parks. Eric wanted to talk about the parks, and Ty wanted to talk about the airport. And the concern that Todd and I had really was the driving, because we wanted, whether or not, I don't even know how the Department of Revenue will treat the driving while under the influence, because not impaired, but driving under the influence, charge convictions under this. That's really for DOR to decide, not for us. So it may not even carry any points. It may go down as a littering or a trespassing on their criminal record. But because it's an offense under our ordinances, it means that if Pete pulls somebody over at 10 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock in the morning, and smoke rolls out and he says, I can't let this guy go, he can arrest him there. He can arrest him, pull him off the road, and if nothing else, we can get him out of the vehicle and keep the public safe that way. And so certainly on the vehicles, that's a hill I'll die on. I mean, I think that one's a really important one to have for public safety, because we at least need to be able to arrest in the moment so that we don't have to let somebody we think is high drive away.
Thank you for clarifying.
Alderman Rucker.
As having probably more experience at writing ordinances than a lot of you, I would tell you that I think that we've had a lot of good discussion, and I think that if we let Cole take what he's kind of been able to pull together and condense it to writing, and then that makes it easier to move forward. I've been involved in these things, like I said, and back and forth, and you can talk them to death. You just got to get it written down. And then once it gets written down, then it's usually, I'm not saying it's going to be 100%, but it'll keep moving that process along. And I just want to bring that as an observation, as like I said, with my experience with writing ordinances and debating and discussing with the city council, city attorney, and the city administrator, and the different department heads and stuff. That has helped me with the process. So
I agree with that, and I was also going to add to that, if anybody wants to go visit with Cole or email him specifically, so he gets some of your views.
Really appreciate that.
Yes, and then he can come back with the first reading. We can tweak it, but I think we all know where everybody's head is right now. All right.
now we need to close the public hearing.
Yes. No, we already closed the public hearing.
We did close it, that's
Yes,
right,
yes.
that's right.
All right, this is discussion item only. So I don't think we need to close the discussion item, do we?
No.
Nope.
right.
I forgot we closed it already.
All right.
He talked too much, forgot.
All right. No, that was good stuff, folks. I know it can be tedious, but, you know, it is legal, but also we don't want to be we don't want to overprotect, and we want to be fair for everybody, so I appreciate everybody's input. All right, moving on, new business. Bill 23-26, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a 25-year agreement with the Missouri Department of Conservation to assist the city with the management and maintenance of the city park pond. This is the first reading. Parks and Recreation Director Eric Gregory. You didn't want me to say the real name that was on here, did you? No. Okay, Eric Gregory.
That threw me off for a while.
Maybe I'll get that
looked at
changed.
that
Took me a while to figure out who
who's
we're
this
talking
guy?
about.
I learned something when I saw the packet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Basically, this is a cap agreement with the Department of Conservation. I started not quite a year ago. The city park pond is roughly 5 acres. By the time I started on May 9th, unfortunately, the vegetation had kind of taken over along the shoreline, and the short version is our park staff and myself are not biologists. We made the attempt to try to treat it, and unfortunately, it was kind of out of control by that point. We've contacted the Department of Conservation, and they're willing to partner with us, and they actually do have people that do this for a living, and it's a win-win for us. They will come in, they will treat the pond, they will use their own Roundup, and really the only thing they're asking us is just to post a sign to advertise the agreement with them, and we'll probably see a conservation agent in the area from time to time. So I support it. That's about all I have.
Very good. All right, comments or questions from the board? Alderman Schuman.
I'd just like to say, I think this is great. It was a great idea because I do remember, I know we talked earlier this week when we did the kids fishing derby last summer, around 4th of July. The vegetation was so bad. When you would try and reel in your fish, it would get caught up and stuff. So I think if there's a way to be able to make it more user-friendly at virtually no cost, that's always a win-win for me.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Ross.
So I have one question. Does this require us to keep the pond for 25 years?
Good question.
There's a comment, there was
I think it mentioned
there's a remark in here or something in here that within 120, within so many days, either side can cancel it.
Correct.
That was in
Okay.
the agreement, 'cause
So,
I
okay.
read
We
that.
have to notify them within
Okay.
so many days before we change it or cancel it, so.
So that the answer would be no then?
No, yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's all I have. Thanks.
Very good. Anybody else? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to
Alderman
approve.
Osteen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. Bill 23-27, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a 3-year janitorial service contract with Lake Clean Queens LLC for an amount not to exceed $68,000. This is the first reading. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail or read this verbatim, but we have had some trouble with our existing cleaning service. They did give us notice on the 31st of March, and we had already kind of planned on bidding this out and kind of looking around. So we had bid this out. I was unaware that they were going to put their notice in when they did, but they did. And the new company, Lake Clean Queens, is in the process of finding employees to fill the positions that if they're hired with us, so they cannot start, assuming this is approved tonight, they could not start until June. So we are in a situation right now where city staff is taking care of all of the cleaning of the facilities at all locations. So with that said, we did bid these services out in January, knowing that a change was likely. The bids were open in February. The city only received the one bid, Lake Clean Queens, at a bid of $68,000 per year for cleaning everything listed on the attached Exhibit A. The previous bidder The previous vendor had a contract that paid them $47,000 a year, and that is what was budgeted, obviously. The price is significantly higher than what was budgeted. That said, we did check the references of the company, and they do come very highly recommended. We're just going to have to give them some time to find some employees that can do the job, and in a way that does a little bit work to our advantage from a budgeting standpoint, because we're not going to pay a company for a couple of months in the interim. And if you go down to my list of breakdown of the charges, you can see that assuming that they can find someone to start by June 1st, that is what those charges will be. But there's also a chance that they may not find somebody until July 1st, you know what I mean? So we're kind of in a little bit of a conundrum right now. We don't know for sure whether we're going to go over budget or not. And so what I'm asking the board right now is to approve this, and myself and Gina will monitor this, and when we get a little closer to the end of the year and we know whether or not we're going to go over budget, we will recommend a budget amendment at that time. But we've got to get somebody in here to start cleaning again and kind of get everything back to where it needs to be. Big kudos to Ron and Kevin and Ty as their teams have kind of stepped in, and really everybody at City Hall has kind of stepped in, has been helping and cleaning in the meantime, and we'll continue to do that. But we got a little bit of ways before we're going to get those people in here. So I do recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, any questions or comments from the board? Alderman Osteen.
Do we require the cleaning services we use to carry a fidelity bond coverage for their employees?
I'm sorry, sir, say that again?
Do we require the cleaning companies we use to carry a fidelity bond for all of their employees, which is basically insurance policy for dishonesty, theft, et cetera? I know we, on our insurance policy, have coverage for all the facilities owned by the city, but a lot of cleaning companies, there are businesses that require they have a policy as well.
We don't have any requirements other than what's already required on basic liability, workers' comp insurance, or business license stuff. Those aren't segregated out with additional bonding. They do have to do certain background checks to be able to enter certain police areas. I know that Todd, that's probably something different for other people in City Hall. They do go through background areas for that.
Okay, so we don't require, but can we at least ask if they carry? Because most cleaning companies do, which is basically just additional protections against, once again, theft, dishonesty.
Absolutely.
All right, Alderman Ross, do you have some?
I was trying to understand under their bid sheet, I'm on page 70. It talks about in addition to expanded services, and then it says a price of $68,000 for expanded services. And I tried to look through this, and maybe I missed it. There's a lot of documents here. What are the expanded services?
So that's a little confusing. I'm glad you brought that up, Alderman Ross. They put some numbers on the wrong line. So one of the things that we did when we bid this out was we looked at just bidding out an alternate to expand services back to the way that we did 10 to 12 years ago. And so they put those backwards. And so their services just for Exhibit A as is $68,000. If we wanted them to do the extra services that I put in the bid, which was essentially going into everybody's office and actually cleaning office desks and taking out trash, which right now we require our employees to do that themselves. And so we put that in there just to see what it would come in at. But because it came in so high, sir, we just kind of threw that out the window. I know it's confusing because she put those numbers in the wrong space, but I think that explains it.
All right, I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Alderman Osteen, what was the name of that insurance again?
It's called fidelity bond coverage. It should be part of any policy they carry. But like I said, it covers theft, dishonesty.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
I'll give him a little.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
I don't have any. Oh.
No. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Second. Alderman Rucker, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading carries. Next, we have Bill 23-28, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a new master service agreement with LOR Engineering, doing business as Cochran. passes. First reading, Mike Welty, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. This is very simple. The board had directed Gina and I to make some changes to the Cochran contract and remove the exclusivity. Hopefully I said that right. From it, there was also some minor changes elsewhere in the contract to their rates, and I think that was about it, but it's that simple. This contract is written very similar to the one before. It is a one-year contract with 2 more option years, and those restrictions that I mentioned have been removed. I do recommend approval.
All right, comments or questions from the board? Alderman Ross.
So I have a couple quick questions. Dave Van Leer, could you help me out? In these hourly fee schedules, what is your role? Are you a managing engineer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're a managing engineer. And what engineer do we use the most here in the city that's at their local office? Who is that probably?
Eric.
Okay,
Eric
and so what
Howe.
is Eric, if you don't mind?
He's either a 3 or a 2, I believe.
Engineer 2 or engineer 3? Okay, very good. That's all I needed. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
Alderman Rose, do I have a second? Alderman Schuman, all those in favor?
Aye.
First reading passes. Next, we have Bill 23-29.
Sorry, I'm going to recuse myself on this next reading.
Very good, thank you. All right, Bill 23-29, ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign on call engineering services agreement with R. Miller Companies LLC. This is the first and second reading. Mike Welty again, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. First, I'm just going to make a general statement about these. We've got 2 of these in a row, and we're going to have 2 more on the next board meeting. So near the end of the year, I was directed by Gina, and I believe that originally came from the board, to kind of expand our engineering capacity. So we did put out an RFQ to do that. We did receive 8 proposals back, and we decided to move forward with 4 of those 8. 2 of those 8 are here for your approval today. The other 2 will be on the next agenda. The idea here is to get several engineers with experience in areas that the city needs so that we can kind of diversify or fill in gaps where there is a conflict of interest with Cochran or however it may be. Miller Companies is one that kind of rose to the top. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we did through this process was hire at least one local engineer. I feel like it's important for us to not only support locally, but find someone that has some experience, knows a little bit about what's already in the ground. And I think Miller Companies has a real advantage here because they have several of our employees that used to work for us and have a lot of knowledge and experience in some of the more recent engineering projects that have happened from a standpoint of water, sewer, and transportation. Just a little bit about these particular contracts in general. What you're approving today is just a general on-call engineering contract. So I'm not asking you today to approve any specific work. What I'm asking you today to do is to approve a on-call contract with this engineering company. And again, we're going to do this 3 more times, 1 more next after this, 2 more next meeting. And then what we'll do is we'll bring back a task order or a supplement when we have a specific job that we want them to do. Now, I do have some specific jobs that I've worked out with Gina and the rest of our staff to have Miller Companies doing, and we're going to be bringing that back to you guys in the near future. It's a project that we have on our budget right now. So what you're approving today is just simply, this is a contract that we're going to put in place so that if I need Miller Companies, I can call them up and I can say, give me a task order or a supplement to do X. And then if that supplement or task order is within Gina's authority to approve, so less than 25,000 and is already budgeted, then we don't necessarily need to come back to the board. If it is something that is going to cost the city in excess of $25,000, which requires board approval, then obviously we're going to come back to the board and get approval from you guys before we can move forward. So I hope I explained that right. I'm happy to answer any questions. I do recommend approval.
All right, comments or questions from the board? Alderman Osteen.
Just two quick things for clarification. R. Miller Companies, is that Rocky Miller?
It was, I believe, it's
Not
passed
anymore,
on
but was, yes.
to-
I was just curious. Okay.
And yes, but Rocky's still associated with them, and yes, he knows not only where the utilities are buried, but also probably a few bodies. So.
Did you have to go there?
I've known him.
Facebook.
Shots fired.
And to clarify
He'll text
why-
me in a second.
Can we also clarify why Alderman Schuman recused herself? Is his husband part of this company? Which I thought he was.
He's pretty much
I
the
didn't know if he
owner.
was or not.
One of the owners.
Couple, him and, there's
Partner.
at least him and some other ones that own.
Partner,
One or two others, I don't know how many, but he's part of it.
Yeah, just wanted clarification for the records.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Morose, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. On to the second reading. Bill 23-29, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a on-call engineering service agreement with R. Miller Company, LLC.
No.
What's that? Oh, can she come back now?
No,
No, she can't, no.
no,
Not till we do.
No, she
Sorry.
we don't-
Yes, oh, yes. See?
We already voted on our husbands, so.
All right, this is the second. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. Roll call, please.
Alderman Rucker?
yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen?
Yes.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. See, I knew what I was doing. All right,
Now she can come back.
Now she can come back.
all right.
Didn't know there was a VIP section out there. That's nice.
All right, on to Bill 23-30, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign on-call engineer service agreement with Horner and, is it Schifrin?
Yes.
First reading. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty, please.
So as I said before, this is essentially exactly the same thing, only with a different company. The reason why we chose Horner and Schifrin, if you remember, they're the ones that helped us with the Tantera sewer assessment. And we really like what we saw from that, and they have a very good reputation in Missouri for their water and sewer work. We do have some specific projects that we're going to throw their way. The one thing I will add this time, and it applied to the last one too, is these two I really wanted to get first and second reading on because we have some projects that we really need to get off the ground. We did go through a little bit of negotiation here, which took a little longer than what I wanted it to. And so the reason why I'm asking for first and second reading on both of these is because I'm going to be turning right around and coming back and asking approval for actual projects within the next meeting or so. So just want to clarify that. I do recommend approval on this one as well. Again, exactly the same thing, just an on-call engineering contract. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions from the board?
Question.
Alderman Hoffman.
Sorry, I'm probably just need to be brought up to speed on this, but does any of this company specifically address the sewage issue going on at the end of the Grand Glaze Bridge?
I'm sorry, can you elaborate?
I think he means sands.
The bad smell.
The Sands lift stations?
Yeah.
You'll get up to speed.
We'll
No.
get you all up to speed
Oh,
with
yeah.
the departments to get you caught up.
Well,
Impressive,
kind of.
sir,
Because that might
impressive.
take a while.
Yeah.
That is-
I just didn't know if these two companies are hired or addressing that, or these have nothing to do with that.
They have nothing to do with it.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Just to help Justin
Oh,
out.
wait, Alderman Osteen beat you by a hair.
And this one's for Cole. Obviously, you reviewed all this documentation, but
Yes.
I'm a little confused on why the previous contractor has a 7-page agreement and this one has a 50-page agreement.
That is a great question. So a project that Alderman Ross and I have been discussing is trying to get everybody on a form of the city's making, of the city's choosing. So Miller Company's contract is my form that I developed. The next two that you'll see at the next meeting are on my form. Horner and Schifrin's actually came in first to me. Mike was trying to get it done, and I did not have my form developed yet. They also sent, the contract you have, is I think E505, I think is what it's called. It is about as standard form a contract as it gets. It is the same as it's the engineering equivalent, Dave will back me up on this, but it's the kind of an engineering equivalent of like the Missouri Association of Realtors residential sale contract. It is or if you're familiar with construction, like an AIA 101, it is a industry standard document. We did actually have them make one change to it. They had a clause in one of the exhibits to it that an arbitration clause that, and the city, as far as I'm concerned, the city should never agree to arbitrate. So I asked them to remove that. They did, but this was such a standard agreement. And when Mike was having me review it, I wanted to he was trying to get this done so we can get it done. I got that one done, and then the other three will be on, as Alderman Ross would say, our paper.
Okay.
And so, but that one was the first in time, even though it's the second on the agenda, it was the first one in time, and we did not have our form ready.
Okay.
And we were trying to get the agreement done.
And for what it's worth, that's always the goal. And Cole's done a great job working with me on that, and we do have a really nice new standard agreement that we're going to start using, are trying to use as much as we can.
And the janitorial services was another one. So that's all the same form with slight tweaks, but the focus of that is really going to be that way we know what's in our contract, and we don't have to go hunt through each and every one just for efficiency, and we know that we're covering it. It's going to make Mike's job simpler. We make my contract reviews simpler, and for smaller agreements, I've also developed essentially a one-page rider that hits our top 5 most important E-Verify appropriations and a couple other things that will streamline a lot of our contracting and make sure that they are doing what we need them to do on our terms, and we're not getting caught. Now, again, if AT&T sends us something, we're going to sign what AT&T sends us. We don't have a choice. But
All right.
where we have the bargaining power in situations like this, they're going to be signing our paper.
Alderman Ross, did you have something?
Go ahead. No, you can come up later.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
There you go. Alderman Hoffman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. Second reading, Bill 23-30, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a on-call engineer service agreement with Horner and Schifrin. This is the second reading. Any more comments or questions? If not, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Schuman. Roll call, please.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Schuman.
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Need a drink before this next one.
Yeah.
A real one or?
6-pack.
And I had to be educated on some of my Roman numbers, so here we go. Bill 23-31, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 115, Employees and Officers, and Chapter 200, Police Department, Article 1 in general sections, 115.010, definitions, 115.060, salaries, 115.120, removal of officer, Article 1, City Administrator, Section 115.160, appointment, Article 2, City Clerk, Section 115.200, appointment, Article 5, City Treasurer, Section 115.260, appointment, Article 6, City Attorney, Sections 115.300, appointment, 115.330, duties, Section 7, City Prosecutor, Section 115.350, appointment, Article 8, Public Works Operations Manager, Section 115.390, appointment, Article 9, evaluation of certain appointed officials, Section 115.410, evaluation of certain appointed officials, Article 2, Police Chief, Section 200.030, appointment, Section 200.040, powers and duties of Police Chief of the City Code for various purposes as set forth. This is the first reading. Who wants to take this? Alderman Rucker?
Alderman Rucker does.
Yes, I don't like that.
Everybody get that? Do I need to
This is not my
repeat that?
Obviously, this is a cleanup bill. One of the things that was, that I recognized was, as we looked at each of the different ones, there was different wordings about them as to how the position is filled, and all that. So I went through and standardized that. That was one of the goals. And then the other goal that was involved was the fact that by going through this, found out that we did not have the city planner that was spelled out, and we did not have the city building official that was spelled out in this area. They were in other portions of the ordinance. It's not that we were doing things not legally, but it wasn't as clean. I will tell you that this specific bill has had the benefit of 2 attorneys, city administrator, city clerk, and I know there's been city building official has had some input into it, city planner. So there's been a lot of different people that have had different inputs into it. Maybe not all of them agreeing with all of it, but there has been input into by a number of people to try to clean this up. I apologize for the fact that there's been 4 versions over the last couple of days. There was some miscommunications there, but that was handled that was taken care of. There is one clarity that needs, one mistake in the version that we are in right now that we will talk about in just a second. But other than that, that's what the basis of it was. The mistake that's in this version right now is if you would go to page 157, our Article 9, where it's evaluation of certain appointed officials. What occurred there was the Public Works Director was just cleaned up, and there was some confusion that it was felt that we needed to, some people felt that we needed to change and remove that to Public Works Operations Manager, but that's not an appointed position. And so that was reversed and changed back and fixed, but unfortunately it wasn't fixed in Article 9. So what, in Article 9, what the change will be is the fact that it will say, it will include Public Works Director, not Public Works Operation Manager. That's the difference. It'll go back to what it was. So that's kind of a very basic synopsis. There's, like I said, there's been a lot of hours and a lot of reading and rereading and to try to make sure we've got it all right. And if there's any other questions, I'll be happy to try to answer, or someone will answer it.
All right, comments or questions? Alderman Osteen.
Well, it's an observation. A lot of this seems to be police chief centric.
What?
A lot of this seems to be focusing on the police chief's position, et cetera, et cetera. Coincidental?
No, it's just that was the.
A lot of this is, directed on that position, so.
Because of the
just an observation.
Because of the, no, it's because of the state statute that directs and changes the way we do business.
Yep.
And it changes it. It's a little more restrictive, and we had to try to really.
It needed more cleanup than the others.
Just an observation.
And we really, honestly, we really struggled with that to try to make it as clean as we could and as easy as possible to understand, because it is cumbersome to understand. But that's.
Even though the state statute treats chief like he's special. So, one other thing that we found in going through it was, as you'll notice, we had some internal inconsistencies and things that just didn't make sense the way they were phrased. There was one of the definitions, I think, said that anybody on salary was a officer of the city, and that may have been an accurate statement 30 years ago, but a lot of city staff are on salary now. And the other one that I caught that Alderman Rucker and I worked through quite a bit is we had about 4 different versions of the mayor appoints with the advice and consent of the board. We had about 4 different versions of that language. And so we picked a single version of it. The mayor appoints with the advice and consent of a majority of the Board of Aldermen. And that's why all the edits look different, because they all said something a little bit different as you won't go through. But we just wanted to clarify that all city officials are appointed in the same manner on the same standard. And it's, there's a canon in law that basically says that if it's worded different, it's intended to mean something different. And it wasn't. So we wanted the same wording throughout.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing Alderman Ross.
So 2 questions. One around Public Works Director, which isn't even a position in the city any longer. Why was it decided to leave it in?
Well, Kevin, Alderman Rucker and I had long conversations on that. It's correct. We currently do not have that in our pay plan or authorized positions at this time. But in light of maybe needing to use it in the future, we decided to leave it in until such time, should the board ever decide to fund that or should circumstances change. That's where some of the confusion was. Kevin, sorry, we're talking about your position here. It was, they weren't interchangeably. It wasn't just a title change. They had different defined jobs and org chart, but that is correct. Public Works Director is nowhere in our approved org chart or operations or our funded position, but not knowing what the future would bring, just leave it there.
Comfortable with that?
One more follow-up,
Go ahead.
just for clarity on that. That's also why under Public Works Director, there's some terminology, and I could read it, but verbatim, it basically says that if we don't have one, the city administrator shall take all those things that we find, and we never know, you don't know what we're going to find in the ordinance someplace where it says that's the Public Works Director, and then Gina can go and say, no, the public operations manager is going to, or whoever is going to handle it. But
that was another reason why Alderman Rucker talked me into, because I was at first very adamant. We don't have it. If we need it, we put it back in. But there's too much cross-reference that we don't know where we found, where we have said, in light of no Public Works Director, city administrator shall delegate. For example, floodplain manager. I've learned so much more, although a lot of the tasks are building official or public works or engineering or waste management. It's amazing what some of the things that, I get to delegate. So that was another very important point on why we decided to leave it.
So then to extend that question, and where I'm headed is around the city engineer, okay? We're talking about potentially employing a in-house city engineer. We talked about that at the last meeting. So if we want to, and I believe, and I realize that hasn't been determined yet, that should be an appointed official, is this the time to put that in, or should we just move on and we'll put that in as we bring that forward? Because I think it would be inconsistent.
I would just like to say that I edited this to where it was, and there was some things added only because those positions were in place. Honestly speaking, I never even thought about the city engineer, okay, didn't at that time, okay. And whether we want to put that person in there or not, I have different opinions on it, but I'd like to just move forward with this, and I'm opposed to discussing that or possibly doing that in the future, but I think we ought to just move forward with this, and then because we have a little bit of time to, before we make that decision.
If the board intends to make the city engineer appointed position, now is the time I need to know. I have the authority to hire and add and change and do staff as hiring. I needed it funded, so I have proceeded with that potential. Now, city engineer is not, yes, it'll be a salary because of the professional level of that job, but it is not a management of a department. There will not be supervisors. They will not be the same aspects as your appointed department heads. So based on that, I was not proceeding as it was an appointed management position because that's not how I funded it, wrote the job description and that forth. If that is the thing, we need to know that sooner or later because we're proceeding under my operation authority at this point to put staff where it's needed. I needed your funding. So that's why your question to get that funded was appropriately structured that way. So I would like to have further depth conversation because that does change the dynamics of that job. It changes how it's, So, sorry, I'm just taking a little back by surprise.
But that has nothing to do with this.
No, it doesn't, but it just highlights me, we're moving under one authority under the ordinance. So.
And it also means that, assuming we follow the template and everything else, that the mayor would appoint, not Gina would hire.
Correct.
So that's just.
As I understand and recall, the city engineer prior, when we had a city engineer.
He was Public Works Director.
Okay, going back a ways,
Before
when we had a true city engineer, those things were combined, all right? And at that point in time, the city engineer position left because it was combined into Public Works Director. In other words, our Public Works Department became under the purview of the existing city engineer, and the city engineer title, if you will, was dropped because that became the Public Works Director, all right?
Correct.
Right, and so there was a city engineer before, all right? Now, I'm going to tell you that, and I know that we're baby steps here, but I believe that we should have, there's a reason why I asked Dave what he was on that rate schedule, because when we look at the money, and this is about what I've been asking for a year and a half is, what are we leaving on the table? I believe there's some very good reasons for us to have more than one engineer in-house, okay? And if given that fact, then that would mean that there is a management position, all right?
And it could morph into that.
Okay? And so I think not only because of the professional piece, I think not only because of what their responsibilities are, not only because of what their grade level is, I think the city engineer should be an appointed position. All right? Now, I realize that isn't necessarily a discussion here, but that's what the ordinance is talking about. And I'm perfectly okay with the fact that, by the way, I want to say, Kevin, thank you for everything you've done here, okay? But if it's best, then I would suggest that we bring that question up about whether or not it's appointed official next meeting. Okay, at the very least, if we want to move on here, because it is becoming a long night. I won't argue that at all. That's all I have.
All right, any comments or questions on this bill, 23-31? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Osteen. Second, Alderman Morose. All those in favor?
Oh, well, wait.
Is that with the modifications?
With the
With the
amendment.
With the amended, or the modification.
I got it with the amendment to section 115.040, change Public Works
we're all on that
Operation
page.
Manager to Public Works Director. Gotcha.
All right, it's been first and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right. I look forward to reading that again next meeting. All right, Bill 23-32, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, creating new sections in Chapter 115, Employees and Officers, Article 10, City Planner, Article 11, Building Official of the City Code for various purposes as set forth. This is the first reading. And Alderman Rucker, would you like to take this one?
Yes, again, as I stated earlier, this was discovered that these two positions of appointed, that were appointed positions were not included in the ordinance, and so that's why they're included here, and that's why they're added. Again, they're just tried to follow the same format, and that's again what we did here. Any other questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Schuman. Second, Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. Bill 23-33, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 500 Building Codes and Building Regulations, Section 500.020, 2018 International Building Code Amendments, subsection 103.2, Section 500.27, 2018 International Existing Building Code Amendments, Section 103.2, Section 500.260, purposes of the city code for various purposes as set forth. First reading, Alderman Rucker.
I really actually should have Attorney Cole take care of this, because he's the one that actually found this mistake. But anyway, it was just some corrections and cleanup.
As you can see, we discovered that Ron didn't exist. And
I've known him since elementary school. It's not true.
And this is really just fixing a cross-reference, but the main work is already done. This is just, this cited an ordinance that I don't think had anything to do with Ron, so we thought maybe we should fix that.
All right, comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading? Motion. Alderman Hoffman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. Bill 23-34, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 400, Planning and Development, Section 400.030, Officers, Meetings, Records, Section 400.045, Zoning Officer, Section 405.710, Zoning Administrator of the City Code for various purposes as set forth, first reading. All right, Alderman Rucker, you?
Yes, again, this, honestly speaking, this is what really started this whole research and into this. I was doing some research about zoning officer, or planning and zoning, and found zoning officer in the state statute, and then I said, wait a second, we don't have a zoning officer, and that's what got me going many, many months ago on this, and so it's like, well, we need to, and of course, I discovered the problem, and between Ed and Cole, they're actually the ones that helped me clean it up and get it to where we're hopefully got our I's dotted, our T's crossed.
There are a couple of state statutes on point. Basically what we did, actually this is very much tracks along the lines of the conversation about Public Works Director, rather than try to merge all of these duties into the city planner. The planner and zoning administrator or zoning officer are not actually the same jobs, so what we have done is simply assigned the duties of the zoning administrator and the zoning officer to the city planner. But if Kerry Patterson were to leave and if he wins the lottery tomorrow, and he's, moves off to Bora Bora, we may hire somebody who we may take the zoning, put the zoning duties on a different person. This makes it the easiest to unwind that without going back and rewriting the ordinances again.
Very good. Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rose. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. Next, we have a motion to approve the appointment of Cole Bradbury as city attorney for the city of Osage Beach effective April 21st, 2023. Gina, would you like to take this?
Well, either one. As the appointed official rules that we now are very well aware of, the mayor appoints with the consent of the board. I know this has been discussion, and this just makes it official for Cole, effective tomorrow.
All right, comments or questions from the board?
And also within this, we terminate the internment agreement.
Yes, I had put that on, upon motion to approval, employment will be effective, and that cancels out the current contract.
I believe my
Sorry, I'm
I believe my
kidding.
contract says it terminates when.
So you're getting fired and hired.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the other way around, you're okay.
Goodbye, welcome.
All right.
Is there severance?
All right, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to
It's
approve.
your motion.
My motion.
You make the appointment.
Oh,
Well, I just explained the appointment. He says that's
yeah,
confirmed.
yeah. Well, I made the motion, so,
No, you can't make the motion.
Yeah.
yeah, I just made, I need a motion to approve, because I have.
You're a
I
terrible
explained the
lawyer.
motion.
All right.
You're a terrible lawyer.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Got first over here.
All right. Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations.
Congrats.
All right. All right, moving on to staff communications. We'll start with Gina Woods, please.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, we're going to do department list first?
Yeah, well, under staff communications, we're just gonna take our pieces as
Okay,
we,
I got
as we
you. All
go
right,
through.
Gina, please.
Yes, Mayor and members of the board. A couple things before, I do have 3 items. Let me just talk about the department list really, really quick, because I've told everybody to be concise and thorough. There are a few items I've added, staff contact noted as requested at last meeting from the Board of Aldermen. Kevin kindly reminded me that I forgot to take off one out of his email, so I will get a little better about thoroughly checking that. So the vehicle replacement plan that was put on was asked to take off. I think this also helped the staff by putting names. So on the items, there are 3 that I'm associated with, and not that I'm trying to get out to go and explain it. I don't have any current update on either the Lake Ozark Osage Beach Joint Sewer Plant. Honestly, I'm just working that in with just some other projects. TIF guidelines. The goal really for that is we are working through the current TIF process, which was one of my updates that I really want to appreciate staff. This has been continues to be a very in-depth process. We had 2 recent CID TDDs go in effect. I know Osage Beach Commons, it's really been a long time coming, but Carrie Bell and I have now in the weeds of working with other attorneys and really getting the administrative piece at City Hall outlined, and because it's got nuances, it's taken up a lot of time, and I do appreciate Carrie and her staff and the outside counsels that's helping us work through the nuances that are different with the other CIDs. So it has been keeping us busy with this new TIF that will continue progressing. It is a refresh, but anytime we go through this process, it does take up extra time. So it is nice, Mark Spikerman, his team, Jeff White. I'm fortunate that we have consultants that we work very well with. I know the mayor has spent a lot of time diving in and being part of the process. Cole's jumped right in. And so as we continue that process, I just know that it does take a lot of time. But with that being said, I'm also taking notes to add to the guidelines. So as soon as we get to a certain level in that, then we will bring back up the conversation about guidelines prior to the next one. But a lot of that process is following what we've currently have in. There's just some nuances of, about bonds and percentages here and stuff. So haven't forgot about it, but the timing will be opened up here shortly. And we will likely continue that conversation in more depth because we are getting ready to do the strategic planning. Now, if we keep adding items, we might be there 2 days. So the agenda is to come out, but I know there's some major topics that we need more board collaboration on or getting down to the same level, and I suspect that will be one of them. Other than that, I don't have any other updates on the items that I'm responsible for. I do want to take the opportunity. I know Alderman Becker has left. I had talked to him before. I wish him well. It was a pleasure working with him. I welcome Alderman Hoffman. I know we're doing orientation and kind of getting to know staff, starting that process, although that'll be continuing for months. So I was thinking the other day, I have worked with over 24 different aldermen over my time, and it's just the way it goes. So welcome, and hopefully we've perfected. So he'll be at City Hall next week getting everything settled in there. The other comment I know I had an alderman ask about the sales tax report. I am a few days behind on my CA report, which is one of the big parts of that in addition to all the department reports. We did get sales tax through April. We are still trailing a tiny bit behind. I first want to point out budget. What was budgeted for 2023 at this point in time, we are about 5.6 less than that. That equates to about $95,000. It is still early, but we are trending a little lower than projected. From this time last year, we're about just not quite 2% less than this time last year. But keep in mind, I am keeping an eye on the budget because $95,000 for general funds, $95,000 when there's not a lot of unrestricted anyway. Nearly 60% of our sales tax collections, though, keep in mind, come in between July and December. So it's too early for me to be too worried and start telling staff to slow down on spending yet. But that full report will be out before I leave tomorrow. That's my goal, to get that out. So I brought that up because, Alderman, there's a few of you that I'm glad you pay attention and like, hey, where's this? So I know you read my stuff when I send it out. So that's all the comments I have, unless you have questions.
All right, thank you. Assistant City Administrator Mike Welty.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'll be quick. Congratulations to Alderman Hoffman. Looking forward to working with you. And then also congratulations to Alderman Osteen and Alderman Ross. I've enjoyed working with you guys, and I will continue to do so. Design guidelines, streetlights. Just a quick update. I found the presentation, and I found a ordinance that was redlined that apparently was rejected or was never officially voted on. So that's where I'm at with that, trying to get caught up on that and see exactly where we need to be, but I've kind of gotten that started. Next item, private street inventory. Have scheduled a date on May the 2nd. Alderman Ross is going to join myself and Eric Howell, and we're going to have a little field trip and go do some grading of some roads. The board had directed me to do this, and then when I come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the private road ordinance and how that all fits into that as well. Expect that to come sometime after we do this assessment. Next on my list, sidewalk master plan. I don't really have any update for that right now. Tantera master plan infrastructure, no update there. right now. Veterans Memorial did have a nice meeting this afternoon with the entire Elks Lodge crew. Good group of guys. Everything is working, is moving forward. Big thanks to the mayor for joining us today and kind of working a few things out there. I really don't want to get into details on this, only to tell you guys that everything is moving forward. Tentatively looking at bringing you guys an agreement between the city and the Elks Lodge on the May 18th meeting. So look forward to that. If that agreement is approved, then we will then move forward with the project. So we'll see where that goes from there. Last but not least, IT service contract evaluation. I turned my evaluation into Gina after Michael and I reviewed it about a week ago. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, but your city administrator is one of the busiest people I've ever met. So I know that I will eventually, hopefully soon, sit down and talk to her about that. But it is not something. But it is not something that we have really discussed a lot yet. So that's all I have.
Crowded.
All right, thank you very much.
Cramped.
All right, City Clerk, Tara Barrett.
Yeah, I don't have a lot. I do have to tell you that Brenda, our front desk, has turned in her 2-week notice. She is, or 3 weeks notice, she's moving back to Nebraska. So we are working on putting out that job. Should be going out, should be out, maybe.
I have graciously loaned her an employee.
Yes, she has graciously loaned me Jan. I'm so excited. So at least she can help out in the process and learn. Brenda's gonna be very hard to replace. She's very good at what she does. And so I'm glad that Jan is learning from her all the ins and outs. And I appreciate Gina giving that to me. Been busy working on business licenses. Bring you guys all the renewal liquor licenses next month. Other than that, we're scanning all of our contracts into Laserfish now. I have them working on cleaning out some of that stuff, and that's pretty much all we've been doing.
All right, very good. City Treasurer, Carrie Bell.
Mayor and Board of Aldermen, make sure I'm on the speaker here. There was, one item assigned to me on the list. Thanks for not leaving me out completely.
You know, I tried to fit everybody in. I'm going to figure it out.
And I think if I understand this correctly, although we're talking about the road property, it kind of almost umbrellas with some other pilot TIF property challenges that we've had with the county. So with that being said, and I think we're all pretty much aware that the county is currently under an audit on a lot of their processes. So I'm going to try to track more closely what the details are of some of those updates. And if there's updates, I will be bringing those back to you until that process is complete. I spoke with Cole earlier. The city, we're going to wait before we consider any further action. And then if Cole, if you want to weigh in on anything on that subject.
We've discussed a few options. Mark Spikerman and I had a conversation about the TIF side of things last week, I think it was. Carrie and I put our heads together today. Obviously, with the TIF process going on right now, we don't want to rock the boat with the county, and we're optimistic that the audit situation will help streamline some of their processes. And Carrie and I very briefly discussed what some of our other options might be going forward. But that's still very much in discussion for us. So no proposed action to report at the time, but she's getting me up to speed on some of the details of the road fund, and I have questions, like I'm sure all of you do too.
Is that kind of in line with you, Alderman Rucker? And then other than that, I'd like to thank the board for their support. I went to the Missouri GFOA. That's our state group that actually meets here at the lake every year. So I appreciate that. We had some sessions on economic conditions, rate conditions, introduction to a new software that's a Microsoft product that actually is available to at least one user at the city at no additional cost. I'm going to work with that a little bit and see what kind of reports I can generate with that. Communicating, there was like sessions on making sure the city offers, most cities offer very good benefits, but communicating that and enticing employees to both come on board and stay with the city by promoting the benefits that the city offers. And they wrapped it up with a really awesome, positive communication speaker named Dr. Alan Zimmerman. Thank you for that. And then this is the utility billing that will occur next week. April's billing will be the last at our old rates. And as soon as that process is done, Keegan Powers will begin going in and setting up the new rates that start May 1st. So she'll be busy with that. Those were the rates that you approved earlier this year. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes.
I do have a question. Actually, I think this is more for Kevin. This was your agenda item, correct? And wasn't part of what we wanted with this was on why we're receiving an annual check on taxes from Camden County as opposed to other areas in Camden County that receive those checks monthly.
It's one piece.
Right.
So,
That's
but
part
we don't
of
have
it.
an update on that yet
Yeah.
because you didn't touch base on that, Carrie. So I was
And
curious.
specifically also, I believe the portion of that Cole is probably going to be taking is, I want to know, or we as the city need to know why we are getting that money, under what statutory provision is that money being given to us? So we can, because that assists us assists me in clarifying some other questions.
So Carrie actually brought me some correspondence on that, and we have looked at the statute. There is a road fund, I forget the exact name of it, but there's essentially a road fund statute. And it is a quarter of the county's road and bridge property tax that is generated within city limits. The county is required to expend it upon roads within the city limits. Now, that doesn't say they have to write us a check, but they're also not doing any work on our roads, which means that their only other option is to write us a check. So that is the statute. After Carrie explained it to me, I probably had twice as many questions after as before, and I'm sure that's why it's on our agenda item. But yes, that is the basis for it. I would really love to see how they reach those numbers, because
That's what we need the audit to conclude first.
And one more follow-up with that is that, a few years ago, we had an issue because they tried to cut our revenue in half. And your city administrator did write a letter requesting the backup to how they came up with that. And just like with the different road districts, nothing was ever, we didn't receive any information.
just based on the text of that statute, there is no way on earth that the number should go down.
Yeah. And once again, it's muddy waters because the city of Osage Beach is the only city in Camden County that gets that check annually. I thought other municipalities got them on a monthly basis.
All cities.
All right, Alderman Ross.
Well, to follow that up, all cities get them but us monthly? That's what Bob just thought.
I thought
that we got them at a different
there
frequency.
was questions about why we're only getting that check annually, but other municipalities within Camden County are getting them more frequently than we
I'm not
are.
100% sure. I think all the municipalities within the county get it annually. It's the road districts.
The other districts that,
The special road districts in the county that get it throughout the year.
Okay.
Okay.
This-
But I'll just say that I think, in talking to one of the commissioners twice now, it seems like that this forensic audit that they're doing at the county is what they're leaning on to help them figure this out. They had a report the last meeting, which is just a couple days ago, and I couldn't find the minutes or the Amongst the Dogwoods blog, because that one's pretty good too. And so I called him and he basically said, well, they've still got there's a software package that they're trying to figure out what it does and why it does it, okay? And they haven't been able to get to that person that wrote that software yet. And they don't expect to do so till maybe June. And so it may be as late June or early July before they get the final of the audit. And hopefully that finality will help explain some of these things. And hopefully that helps
And
a
that's
little bit.
sort of the short answer I got back in 2019 when we were pressing the first layer of this come up.
Well, the audit is what's going to help. And to be quite honest, everything that I've looked at is I think there's some incompetencies at this point at the county level, and I'll leave it at that.
Is it an internal audit or is it being conducted by a third party?
Third party.
Forensic
Okay.
audit.
All right. Thank you, Kerry. Chief Davis.
I've got two things. Corporal Leyva celebrated his 25 years of employment with the city today. 24 with the police department. He was with Public Works for a year.
Yep.
So, and then Corporal Reiner has completed, or will tomorrow complete his second week of DRE training, the drug recognition expert that Cole was talking about, and then he'll be back to work for a week, and then he goes to Philadelphia with the class for actual field observations, and they test all the drunks in Philadelphia, or impaired people. Apparently, the location in Philadelphia is well known, and I think they're taking about 25 officers up to this. So,
They stay safe.
and it's all paid for by the state. So, but it's a very tough class to get through. So.
Impairment. Speaking of impairment, Ron White, building official.
I had a quick question for the chief. Where are we as far as road patrol staffing?
So I was going to let Michael cover that, but
He's covering it, that's fine, go right
Okay.
ahead. Keep
All right.
moving, that's fine.
So, Ron White, building official.
First of all, alleged, never convicted. Chief can verify that. Just a couple of updates. The bathrooms in City Hall are underway. The wallpaper being removed and then repainted. Big thanks to Kevin and Rob and their guys for coming in the early morning before the Easter egg hunt and removed our invasive Bradford pear trees. For those of you who may or may not have noticed, it really made a big difference on the front of the building as far as being able to see the building. So thank you very much. They saved us quite a bit of money. I did get a bid from the landscape crew. And in our staff meeting, Kevin jumped all over that and said, we've got the bucket truck, we have chainsaws, and, well, we actually had somebody volunteer to help out, but he hadn't been through the safety training. As far as the janitorial contract, thank you for that, for the first reading. We're looking forward to getting folks back in here. A big shout out and a thanks to everybody around City Hall. We really have had a lot of folks pitching in and doing a little extra work there. Most of all, I really do want to recognize our maintenance technician, Doug Damron, and Inspector Josh Johns, when they have, well, not when they have spare time, every morning they go through and make sure everything's stocked. Josh ends his days with going through and doing cleaning and odd jobs here and there just to make sure that we're keeping up with everybody. For those of you who may have noticed during this meeting, I'll probably be coming to you for a chair purchase here real soon. And Justin's orientation on Tuesday. Welcome, Justin. Unfortunately, I'll be at the Lake Area Code Officials meeting, but I do look forward to getting to know you a little better. No, that's all I have.
All right.
Really?
Now, Chief, did you say Mike was going to address?
Michael Ray.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mike Ray.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to do that, Michael Ray, HR?
Oh, I'd love to. So, start off with employee benefits. There's talk about looking into the loggers program. Currently, information is being gathered, starting this week, to fill out their cost study request. Once we get that submitted, they'll be able to go through and, with their actuaries, give us a breakdown on what it would cost for the loggers. For a vacancy status update, since the last board meeting, we've had a utilities locator and a part-time paramedic start. We've lost a sewer technician 3 and a part-time dispatcher. And then we had offers out for a police officer recruit, which Chief Davis returned back today. So we've got the offer letter back for a police officer recruit. And then there's also an offer letter out for an airport technician. Some of the other items for the employee survey, This was started before I started here, and I'm wanting to know what the board would like to see, what information the board would like to gather with the employee survey. And then to go along with that employee 360 feedback process, we just finished our annual performance evaluation process. We could use a different software that goes along with the employee survey. It'd be the same software to do a 360 feedback process as well as performance reviews. And so I'm looking into that process and what that would take and what that would look like.
Any comments from Michael Ray? Alderman Ross.
So a couple, three. One, what is our current staffing level for the road patrol on the police department?
I'm 4 down on patrol with the recruit that we just hired. He graduates the academy June 4th. I'm sorry. Yeah, June 4th, June 9th. And then we'll be 3 down on the road. And we've got one more applicant that he just put his application in today. He's doing a ride-along tomorrow night, and we're going to schedule testing next week. He actually graduates the academy May 4th. So if all goes well there, we'll be
down 2.
Down 2.
Okay. And at sewer?
Sewer is at a low staffing level. We've got a couple out with medical issues, high turnover rate for that department. We're still looking.
So we have 8 people that are, we have 8 head count, okay, plus a supervisor. How many are we short? That's just my quick question.
5.
We're short 5?
Yes.
Short 5.
Okay. All right. As far as the employee survey, and I'm not sure what all the board wants, that was mine. This is one I've been pushing for years. I will just say that it's a baseline of a culture survey of what the employees feel about, how they feel about the organization across many different subjects, okay? It isn't to say whether we're good, bad, or otherwise. It's acknowledge reality and then determine over time as we continue those surveys how we've improved, if at all, in those areas where there may be need for improvement.
Okay.
That's mine. If other people have input, if you know, however you want to handle this, I just think that it's something that I don't think we've done one since 2018 or 19. And at that time, while it was an okay survey, I think it left a lot to be desired as far as the overall assessment of the employee culture here at this organization. And so just to add my 2 cents around what you're looking for, and there may be others that have opinions too.
Alderman Osteen.
Piggybacking on what Richard said, part of why this is an agenda item here is because it seems every year when it comes time for employee reviews, performance reviews, that process exceeds what the expectation date was for department heads to get those completed. And part of this being on this agenda was to keep everybody's feet to the fire, department heads, on making sure those are being completed by specific dates. This is only my 3rd year on this board, but every year we get updates on these, and we're going months past completion dates when these should have been done. That's not fair to our employees, and obviously it's very frustrating as a board to not know that we are basically keeping on track and schedule for something our employees are benefiting from.
Oh, Bob, I will answer to that. I will say that this is our 3rd evaluation period with our NeoGov software, which had its own issues this year, which was not our, other than we had employment changes. Mike Ray literally come in the peak of starting of that. But NeoGov had some issues this year. But last year was our 2nd year, and I'll just be honest, different mayor. Besides myself, everybody was on time on evaluations, besides me, which was pretty late, but again, that was their things. The year before was our 1st year in NeoGov, and yes, we had went to the common evaluation date. We were still kind of finishing up in May and June. That was the 1st year, but last year we were all on time. This year, I will say we were probably 2 weeks delayed overall average, which I have to commend Mike Ray for coming in, hitting the ground running the end of November with the holidays, learning not only that software platform, but 5 others just to get payroll every week. I'm hoping he's breathing. I sometimes hate to come in his office, but I have to commend him to be on just an average of 2, maybe pushing 3 weeks late on an average of, nearly 100 that have to go through. It was a big feat. So that's on evaluations, we've come a long way.
And hopefully to get better.
It will.
All right. Airport, Ty Dinsdale.
No updates here, just congratulations to Justin Hoffman and
Alderman Ross and Alderman Osteen, thank you guys for your service. Appreciate it.
Eric Gregory, Parks.
Yes, sir. I'll lead with the park master plan. Dave and Mike Welty and myself have had several conversations on basically after the master plan was completed, what direction we want to go at this point. Basically, what project do we want to start first? I want to thank Alderman Schuman for taking the time out to come out this week and spend some time at the park and discuss that. Thank you, Alderman Ross, for also coming out. I know we didn't specifically talk about the master plan, but what I'd like to do is invite everybody out at some point. I'll be reaching out by email. Maybe we could schedule some time. I think it's very important that you're there in person so that you can kind of visualize some of these projects. So be looking for my email and at your convenience. In other news.
Can I back up on that real quick?
Yeah.
This was one of my agenda items because when we reviewed the meeting minutes from the workshop on the park master plan, there was a series of questions that were unanswered. One of the key ones is always obviously prioritizing what you wanted done at the different park locations. And I think that's really where I was going with wanting updates to figure out, okay, what's our next step? What do we prioritize? Therefore, budgeting, you know what I'm saying, it's a domino effect. And, you know, we've seen the overall budgeting for everything on the wish list, but we never have really broken it down saying, hey, year one, we want to do this. Year two, we want to do this. That's what really I was looking for.
That's exactly why I want to meet with everybody
Okay.
individually. I have an idea of what I want to do. Dave has an idea, Mike
Yeah.
has an idea, but I also want to get everybody's input to help us make a more informed decision. So.
Okay.
And I will say, whenever I did meet with him, he actually had it broken down, which I'm sure he's going to share with everybody individually as well. This item and this item specifically in 24, this item and this item in 25. So he has broke it down. So it's going to be,
Okay.
he's addressing it.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to also thank everyone who came out for the Easter egg hunt on April 8th. We had beautiful weather. I want to especially thank our parks team for working so hard to make sure that, of course, the park looks nice all the time because we have such a great team. And also the other city employees who volunteered their time to help out. Beautiful weather that day, perfect day, and I think we estimated around 1,200 kids attended and probably over 3,000 visitors. Just a reminder, the Lake of the Ozarks Food Truck Festival, hosted by the city of Osage Beach, will take place on April 29th and 30th. I did receive an update from the Food Truck Coalition, and we have right now scheduled 18 food trucks and 20 tent vendors, and also live music. This will be at the city park. It's going to be a big deal. We've never hosted one of these before. We're very excited about it, so come on out. It'll be 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on both of those days. Give the Parks and Recreation Office a call if you need more information. I think we recently posted the spring yard waste drop-off started this week. You're welcome to bring City of Osage Beach residents trimmings, limbs, grass clippings, small trees, and I stress small trees, please, and leaves located in the back of City Park behind the maintenance building. Give us a call if you need more information. Also, this week, it's very exciting, the Dragon Smoke Barbecue Competition registration page is officially live. Thank you very much, Gina, for working so hard. This is a big, big deal. It went live on Tuesday. The page includes registration application, obviously rules, information. It's on the city website under the Parks and Recreation page, or you can go to the Kansas City Barbecue Society under their events page, and you'll see City of Osage Beach Dragon Smoke Barbecue Competition, and there'll be a link on there. So more to come. This is going to be a big deal, and we're very excited about it as well. We do interview for a vacant park tech position on April 27th. We have 7 applicants that we're going to interview. We're hoping to find a good applicant out of there. Just a reminder, Little League season and baseball, softball weekend tournaments start on May 1st. We already have Little League practices going on all week at City Park and Peanut Park. The maintenance shop bathroom project is moving forward. Public Works is assisting us, and hopefully we'll begin trenching the water line possibly in the next week or two, if all goes well and the weather cooperates. And then we'll be able to install from there to the maintenance shop and add on the bathroom. So that's a big deal in the parks world. And then lastly, I'd like to thank students from New Horizons High School for their service projects on April 14th. They volunteered their time to come out and do some painting projects and plant flowers, and even picked up quite a bit of trash at Peanut Park. So thank you again. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Kevin Crooks, Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor and the board. I have 3 updates today. The emergency generator backup plan for the city. The update there is Chief Davis and I met Sam Hanley with the emergency county management up in Camdenton at their shop. We did look at their generator. It's more than big enough. It's a beast. It's about 300 kW. We would only need about 100 kW generator. It's plenty big enough. The problem is there's a number of provisos that come along with that generator. The generator is basically tasked for Homeland Security. So if we were to need it, I would have to send in a requisition. It would have to get approved. They have to move it to us. We can't go get it. We can't move it. So I mean, the likelihood of that, the feasibility of that is, it would have to be a perfect day for that to be something we could rely on. It turns out too, it has no cables. I guess they're on order. But all that aside, I did coordinate with Sam. When the cables do come in, I want to bring that generator to Bluffwell. We happen to have an ATS there, an automatic transfer switch for the generator that we used to have in inventory. I want to test that ATS switch. That'll give me valuable information to tell me if it still works or not. And that is, of course, on the west side. We have 2 separate water systems. So on the east side, the new Swiss well 3, relatively new Swiss well. Our in-house electrician is looking at pricing out the gear, basically an emergency disconnect switch that will be necessary for us to plug a generator into it for the east side system, whether it be rented or a purchase. And so about that purchase, we'll talk more about that in a strategic budget meeting, which will be upon us before you know it. So that's the update on the emergency generator. Lift station panel replacement plan. I'm assuming we're talking about kind of a holdover from the ARPA days. There was 10 or 12 stations that we identified we wanted to get replaced. Again, I assume these are all 3-phase stations we were talking about. Smaller stations we're doing every day. We did probably 2 this week. I think we got 4 next week, so smaller grinder stations. So this panel replacement plan, I assume, talks about the 80 3-phase stations we have. Those are the big movers. They're capital costs. This year we're doing 3. We're doing Rockway piping. We're doing Lazy Davis Road and Osage Beach Road. So out of those 12, it would have been awesome if we got ARPA, but that didn't happen. So we are chipping away at that. And about that program in general, we typically do 3 stations a year. We have 83 phase stations. If you do the math, that's, you're then assuming that those stations are going to last 30 years. That's suboptimal. It's not really realistic. So back to the strategic planning sessions, we should really be doing 4 to 5 of those a year, and we'll talk about those costs later on. And then the Swiss Village treatment plan. On April 25th, some folks I know from Minneapolis are going to come down here. Miles Jensen and John Thome, they are like the water treatment godfathers. I've worked with these guys in the past. They actually did one of my $13 million treatment plants that I used to run. So basically they're going to come down here, look at our sites, look at the wells, look at the spacing, and basically have enough information to come away with to give us a quote for a feasibility study. There's really no charge here. They're just literally kicking the tires. They're going to meet Zach and I and talk about our specific needs and hopefully come away with enough to give us a feasibility quote for the feasibility study. And that's all I have unless there's any questions. Yes, sir.
Alderman Osteen.
Obviously, sounds like on the generator backup plan, Plan A is not going to work out with the county.
It's not a plan.
It's not a plan.
Not a plan.
Yeah. So I think as the board, we're just looking to you to say, come back and tell us what Plan B is.
Yeah, well.
And throw a cost at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to. The plan is to test the existing ATS switch on Bluff Well, so that's west side. We got to have one on each side at least. And in that sense, if there was something mechanically wrong with Bluff Well, well, we're kind of in the weeds because we need disconnects. I mean, we're just beginning the redundancy here. We don't have any right now. We did in the past. We're just trying to get back to where we used to. We have one well on the east side, one well on the west side. So when we get that generator in a test, we'll know what's going on the west side. So on the east side, my electrician is going to price all the components necessary for our new well, the higher quality well, Swiss 3, and he'll just install that himself. That's probably not a big deal. So at least we'll get to where we have one well on each side. Now, to your point comes, where's the engine? What are we going to do? So that will be addressed in the strategic commission where we start talking about numbers and what that would take.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, Alderman Rucker.
Yes, a couple of items. One, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Dan Fields with the Lake Sun. For those that did not have the opportunity to be at the TIF commission meeting or did not have an opportunity to view it online, it's a very good article on the front page, and Dan did a very good job, I believe, of spelling everything out and bringing a lot of the points out and the issues out, and it's the facts is what he perceives them are, and he's not taking one side or the other, and I applaud the fact that he's helping to get that information out. Secondly, I'm glad to see that our marijuana tax issue passed. It was almost a 74%. For whatever it's worth, we are not in the minority. There was, and I have the stats here of some of the reporting from the MML, but basically, just in the cities alone, there was 130 cities that said they were going to put it on the ballot. Now, that doesn't mean there were only 130, but there was 130 that said, hey, we're going to do it. Of that, 109 reported after the election that here's our results. And of those 109, 105 were yes, and 4 were no. So I think that I applaud the aldermen. I know we had some that were reluctant to want to put it on there, but I think it was the right thing for us to do, and our citizens told us what they wanted, and they were wanting to see that tax. I would just want to point out that on the loggers information that you're digging into, Michael, I would just tell you, you're about 90%, I'm about 90% sure that I will be voting against it. I just want to let you know that up front. I've been opposed to loggers all along. I've been involved with loggers presentations throughout my career, and I'm not a loggers fan. Also, just remember, there's a big difference in loggers and what we have. And that's something you need to be very important. The board needs to make sure. Loggers is an assigned benefit program. We have an assigned contribution program. And if you don't understand those two terms, you need to understand them before you get into the debate, discussion about that program and our program, because that's a very big difference in those two kinds of programs for retirement. Last but not least, thank you for the 15 years. It was interesting that just 3 weeks ago, I went to put my pin on one of my sports coats, and I looked at it and was like, this ain't right. Darla, when did I get elected? I had a 16-year pin.
Yeah.
And I don't know where.
We don't know how you got a 16.
I don't know. I have my 10-year, so I put my 10, and actually I had the 16-year on there. I'm like, no, I can't put that on there. That ain't right. So I put my 10-year on there, which I will now replace with my 15. But anyway, Thank you.
It's interesting, we have never in my history ever ordered 16, so it
I
had to
turned
been
it
an
back in
error
the car. I said,
somewhere.
I don't want it.
It's on my desk.
It's yours. It's yours to keep. So but it's been a lot of good, enjoyable years. Some tedious times, some debate times, some upset times, but the bottom line is I feel like it's been worthy of my time that I've spent so far, and look forward to not 15 more though. That's all I have.
Thank you. Alderman Schuman.
Just a few things. One, thank you to Eric for taking me around at the park and stuff, because as much as I go to the park, I had not been to the lakefront access in a long time, since before the bench and everything was out there. So that was kind of nice to go around and see that part and discuss what our park future hopefully entails. Congratulations to Bob and Richard on your re-election. And then to Justin, welcome. And I get to do this. I'm gonna reiterate what Bob told me when I started. It's nice to no longer be the new one. So now it's on you.
Thanks for the challenge. I
Although
appreciate
that does make me feel like I don't get to use the "but I'm new" anymore. So
I don't know better.
welcome. You get to use the "but I'm new."
Gonna use it all the time,
Yes.
too.
So absolutely. So and that was all I had.
All right, thank you. Alderman Hoffman.
Well, thank you for passing the new guy torch.
You're welcome.
New older person torch.
I just want to say thanks to everyone everyone's been very nice and very polite to me. I know turnover is always difficult, and I know that Tyler is a very popular and nice guy, and a lot of people like him. So I just appreciate everyone taking the time to give me a chance and to make my impact. And I really look forward to working with everyone here. There's a lot of really smart people in Osage Beach, and I'm happy to be part of it. So I'm really looking forward to the challenge. Department heads, I would like to come in and see everybody over the next month or two, just to get a feel for what you guys are doing and how I can help. So that's kind of how I am. I like to get out on the road and go see things for myself and talk to people. So that being said, I'm really excited about this, and thanks a lot, and I hope we do some great things together.
All right, thank you. Alderman Osteen.
Yes, I wanted to thank Tyler Becker for his service on the Board of Aldermen for the City of Osage Beach and all the work he did on the board and for the citizens of the city. He was not a very vocal board member, but still waters run deep. On the flip side, I would like to welcome the raging river that is Justin Hoffman, which is the opposite of still waters.
We obviously go way back.
I've actually known him since he was in elementary school with my sister. So we have a very long history, but I am very happy to have him on this board. I believe he will definitely work on improving where the city is at now and where it's going to be in the future. So welcome aboard, Justin.
Thank you very much, Alderman Osteen.
And that's all I had.
All right, thank you. Alderman Rose.
Well, just to complete echoing, welcome, Justin. And I'd also like to congratulate our new city attorney. Very nice to have you. And very nice to have Richard and Bob by my side again. I appreciate that very much. Also, I think, again, we all need to thank Alderman Rucker for all the time that he has spent in doing things with ordinances and getting with the city administrator and the attorney. But anyway, very appreciative. Thank you. Easter egg hunt. Kudos to our manager, Eric. You did a fantastic job. You had a lot of help. Your crew was good, volunteers, city staff, and it was very, very well organized for what I saw anyway when I was there. And it was a lot of fun. And by the way, Alderman Schuman, her little girl, won the gold egg on the Easter egg hunt, but I think you donated the bicycle.
She actually made the decision.
Okay.
She's 5 years old. I will say she did happen to find one of the golden eggs. I was shocked. At 5 years old, she liked her bike and she donated. She went to Target and picked out a bike, took it and donated it to the Noon Rotary to use for their Candyland charity this winter. And she was very excited to do it, which then made my son make me go to buy stuff to donate to Dogwood Animal Shelter. So, very donating kids, but thank you. But yes, it did go to another charity because she did have a bike
That was very
she
nice,
loves.
yes. Other than that, I just remind everybody, obviously, we got the Dogwood Festival starting tomorrow through the weekend, and I didn't see any rain that they initially forecasted. So it looks like it might be a little chillier, but there's no rain. And Dog Days, we've got the in-water boat show this weekend. And other than that, of course, portion of the proceeds from that boat show goes to Kids Harbor. So it's for a good cause. And other than that, I just don't think I have anything else.
All right, thank you very much. Alderman Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, welcome, Justin. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for running and your service. Secondly, Cole, I want to applaud you and recognize you for getting us on our paper so quickly. Several other things you've done, but that's one that's been out there in my craw for a long time, and greatly appreciate you taking care of that. And last and not least, but wish the mayor a great trip this weekend. Early congrats to you and Kim. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend and an enjoyable trip.
Alaska.
That's all I have.
Alaskan
Thank you very much.
Break the news.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Thank you. I skipped our city attorney, so we're going to go with him before my closing remarks.
My life has been consumed with the TIF Commission the last few weeks. I think that's, obviously we passed, so that was, it was a long meeting, a very interesting meeting, a lot of interesting questions, and it all went very well. Again, I'll echo everybody else. Alderman Becker was tremendously helpful on that, and if you see him, thank you for his service on the TIF Commission, because he worked on it right up until the end. Along the same vein, welcome Alderman Hoffman. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir.
Giving you above average advice at least. Yes.
Above average will work.
Mayor, I think you forgot Dave as well. I don't know if you had anything to say or not. I just wanted to make that comment, sorry.
Thank you.
But aside from the TIF, look forward to, I have another memo about ready for you. Gina and I need to talk about it tomorrow. And then along the lines of Alderman Rucker's ordinance updates, I have a truly stimulating topic that we need. And those of you in the room who know what it's about,
Spoil and surprise, just wait
And
tomorrow.
I will take credit. This is coming across the board now. So,
Yeah, we know we're.
so there's some nice light reading with a glass of wine tomorrow. So look forward to that.
All right, thank you. And my apologies, Dave Van Leer, Cochran Engineering.
No problem. I'll just give a quick update on a few projects. Paving is scheduled for Amy Lane next week, so that project continues to move along on schedule. We expect work to start over the next few weeks on the Hatchery Road drainage improvements, and then also the pavement maintenance work. We did open bids for the parking lot and emergency exit here at City Hall. That bid opening was today, so we're evaluating those bids, and we'll be bringing those to the board soon. Bid opening for the Sands Lift Station Gravity Sewer improvements is scheduled for next week, April 27th. And then here in early May, we intend to put out the Public Works and Parks bathroom improvements. So just an update on a few things we're working on right now. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I just have a couple things, three actually. First of all, Easter egg hunt. Again, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Kim and I went out there and watched it for the longest time, and then we took a walk over the new culvert all the way down to the lakefront. Beautiful, and came back. The kids were having a ball. The weather was perfect. So excellent job, Eric, and thank you to our special Easter bunny as well, and Mike Welty. Since it was a real Easter bunny, we won't mention names, but I know it was a little warm, but he did a great job as well. So thank you for that. Food Truck Festival, wonderful thing. I don't know if you guys went to it when it was Lori, but it's a big deal. It's neat as heck. Go around, go hungry, enjoy it. It's just it's neat to bring that over here to Osage Beach. So new exciting things going on at the city park. I said it before, but congratulations, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Alderman Becker. Enjoyed working with him, and congratulations to Alderman Osteen and Alderman Ross as well. And the last thing I was just going to say is on that TIF hearing, interesting TIF hearing, and I just want to say we are very fortunate as a city. And I think you guys know the professional people that we have working in the background. And it's just amazing to be on conference calls. I mean, our new city attorney knows his stuff. Gina is wonderful. Our professionals, PGAV, and Jeff White with Columbia Capital. I mean, the attorneys, one of the things that bothered me, well, let me put it this way. Some of the accusations at the TIF hearing were about the fact that we just hire people to say what we want to have done. They hire somebody so they say it's blighted, hire somebody so they say it's affordable, and we don't care. And I think you guys know Columbia Capital was what caused the breakdown last time because they were so thorough in protecting the city. We have professionals that protect the city. They see this as workable for everybody. My personal opinion, this is great for the city of Osage Beach. We've got a lot of work to do yet, but I just want people out there to know that we have a great staff and great professionals, and they are doing their due diligence to make sure that this is done right before anything is ever passed. So I just want to thank everybody on the TIF hearing and wanted to make that known publicly. All right. With that being said, we are going to go into executive session.
I promise.
What's that? No, I know, me too. This will be quick. Notice is given that the agenda includes a roll call vote to close the meeting as allowed by, is it, what's RESMO?
RISMO, revised statutes, I'm sorry. Just so you can say RISMO.
Section 610.0213, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting particular employees by a public governmental body when personal information about an employee is discussed or recorded. So, do I have a motion to move into executive session?
Motion.
Alderman Ross. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, Alderman Huffman.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, with Bob Palmer.
See you tomorrow.
I might be tomorrow.